Thanks, Casey. Are we live?
It just means it's the same all the way instead of writing it every single time. Just carry it down, carry it down.
Welcome to my side. Thank you.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move on down to our agenda. Our next item is elected officials reports. And the first one up is June. Good morning.
Good morning. Not a lot to report. I still have 4 appraisers working from home, which is working out wonderfully. They're getting a lot more done working at home. So Anthony is hoping to have our analysis completed this week. He and I have been working on sales for about the past month, and we've got everything entered and updated that we've received so far. So we're on top of that. The DMVs will be opening up full-time next Monday. There will be a good-sized advertisement in the Star News that'll be coming out this week. Plus, I have contacted McKinsey to get it posted this week on the Valley County website and Facebook. So we're going to be doing our best to try to accommodate the public with the DMVs. We will have limited hours. It will be from 9 to 3:30, but I'll have 2 clerks working. That'll make a difference. Instead of just 1 person working, I will have 2 people working. The reason that we decided to go with 9 to 3:30 is 3:30, if you get your last appointment, then they're done at 4. And the DMV staff works from 8 to 4:30. This makes it easier to stay consistent when somebody should get sick or goes on vacation. I'm not trying to change hours. Eliza will be back in 2 weeks. We are very excited for that. So we will be as fully staffed as we can be by then, and she's very excited to come back. Do you have any questions for me?
From 8 to 4:30 are your hours, so when they come in at 8, I'm assuming they're doing now and turning everything on and getting ready.
Oh, that they have plenty to do, especially since they have to scan everything, the title work and everything. That takes a lot, that added a lot of time to their morning routine. So
Is that part of the new state requirements? Is that scanning process?
yes,
So they're
well, it's ITD. It's a new, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for June?
okay,
All right, thanks.
okay,
Have a
thank
great
you.
day.
You too.
Mr. Miller. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just to provide you an update on elections, the last day to request an absentee ballot for the March 9th election would be this Friday at 5 p.m. So just want to make sure that the public is very aware of that the last day to request absentee ballots is this Friday. We are still, as I presented the last time, going to be doing in-person elections for the March 9th. The Idaho First Bank, Donley Bible Church, as well as the American Legion. The matters that are on the ballot are the McCall Donley School, bond, and the Cascade School District supplemental levy.
That's it?
That's all that's on the matter. That's all that's on the ballot for this upcoming March 9th. We will be doing the investiture for Judge Adam Dingledine on Friday, March 5th at 4 p.m. I'm hoping that everyone can participate. This is a huge honor for us to be having Judge Dingledine, and we will be having the investiture ceremony March 5th at 4 p.m. That is a Friday.
That's here in this room?
We're going to either do it here in the commissioner room or in the courtroom.
Okay. So what does that entail? Is that like a swearing in kind of?
Correct. He'll officially be sworn in by the administrative district judge in Ada County on February 25th. But we felt that there also should be a ceremony in Valley County. So we will be having his ceremony in Valley County as well, and allowing the public as well as anyone else who would like to attend to engage in that ceremony.
Have you met him yet?
We have. He'll actually be up here this Friday, getting his ID badge, his computer set up. So we're excited to have him on board and begin his service with Valley County.
Cool. Good.
Yeah. So if the commissioners can attend, that would be great. And we'll be sending out a more formal invitation to, of course, the prosecuting attorney's office, the public defenders, as well as just a general notice to the general public to participate.
Okay.
That's really all I have to present this morning.
Perfect. Are we going to invite the paper to come too?
We will.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we notify the Star News.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Brian. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we refer to ourselves as the Bryan Trust in the office.
The Brian Trust.
Instead of the brain trust?
Instead of the Brain Trust. No, not much to report really. We're working hard, just getting getting up to speed. There's been with COVID and everything, there's been kind of a backlog of especially criminal cases, and so there's a pile to dig through, and then we start trials next month. There should be a couple of criminal trials, a felony and a misdemeanor that should go to trial next month in March, and so we're getting ready for those. So far, as I'm sure you've noticed, in our office we've split the workload. I'm handling the criminal cases, and Oki is handling the civil matters, and we're all back full time. So starting last week on the 16th, all of the staff is back working their normal full-time hours. We have enough room there to be able to, social distance when we need to, wear masks when we need to, and be cautious. But yeah, as of last week, we're up and running full steam ahead. So there's not a whole lot other than that to report. We are working hard to get timely responses to you guys, all the elected officials on the civil side. I know Brian's working really hard in the midst of moving up here. That's always fun, especially this time of year.
This time of year is a fun time to move.
It is.
Prime time.
When you've got, when all the gravel for your driveway is frozen and still in the gravel.
Frozen in the gravel pit.
Yeah, frozen in the gravel.
Valley County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we're enjoying it. I think we have a good office environment. We're still working on getting everybody's assignments sort of dialed in and making sure everybody's working efficiently and doing the right things when we need to, and preparing for what promises to be a very busy March and April with all those cases piled up. We've talked a little bit about a lot of those criminal cases going to mediation. Some of the misdemeanor criminal cases may end up in mediation. I'll need to talk more about that with our clerk, but that has been suggested, I know, by some of the folks, the trial court administrator in Ada County, as well as some of the judges that we've had over the last few weeks. So maybe that mediation process will kind of help us reduce the number of trial sets, so that the spring isn't quite such a deluge for us. I mean, we can only try so many, but I think we're going to be fine. I don't think we'll with the Supreme Court orders. I don't think we're going to have any issues with our criminal cases. There may be some delays. We may have cases set out further than we want, but the Supreme Court waived a lot of those time constraints that we normally have. And so I think we're going to be just fine, but it'll be a busy spring for sure.
So Ron, you're thinking you've got what, 4 trials in March, maybe 4 or 5?
Right now, I think 2 in March. And I don't know that we can really do that much more. I know that I've got 2. I think the city has 1. One of mine is a felony trial, and 1 is a misdemeanor. And so I think those 2 are set in March. It kind of, it was one of those things where they said we could start having jury trials here a week or 2 ago. And in preparation for that, all of the trials had been vacated. So we have cases that still need to be set for trial, but just haven't been. And so there's going to be a bunch that'll be set in April and then in May and then in June, but and so on. But for now, I think we're just going to have 2 in March. And barring, that kind of is dependent on the case levels for COVID. But barring a big spike, I think we should be able to have trials in March.
And they'll be in person?
Yep, they'll be in person. I think we'll still have the same, we'll have the plexiglass and the masks and all that, but they'll be in a courtroom.
Yeah, I think it can be done. It's going to be challenging. I guess my only thing that you might want to check on is 3 of us had a TTI meeting on the 3rd floor courtroom. We had some issues with monitors and getting stuff to work. So you might, in your spare time, go up there and make sure all your technology's working.
Yep.
Hopefully we're going to do some interviews this week or pretty quick here for a new IT director. But
Great.
I would kind of follow through on that and make sure everything's kind of working until we get that person on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely do some test runs out. First trial in that courtroom, I'll want to do that for sure. So.
Okay,
Yep.
any more questions for Brian?
Okay,
All right,
thank you much.
thank you much. Sheriff.
Sure.
And you have an action item.
I do.
Go ahead.
So, Tackle Tom's had 5 Glock safe action training weapons. They're blue, and that's what they're used for, is just for training purposes. And they had no need for them. And so they wanted to donate to us, which would be great.
And then you use them for training too, or?
That's what they're just for training, for safe action. It makes your scenarios more real, but you're not using your service weapon unloaded or whatever. This is safe.
I'll make a motion then we accept the donation from Dr. Thomas for 5 Glocks. Pistols.
Safe action.
Training.
Safe action training.
Safe action training.
Second. Third.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And I'm assuming if you want to do a thank you, we would certainly be willing to sign anything you guys. All right.
Only needs the chairman's signature.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Net value I failed to give, that's $350 a piece, so it's $1,750 values. Wow.
Thank you, Tackle Bombs.
And just to let you know that IDOC had advised the Sheriff's Association that they would be reducing the number of their inmates within county jails. And we have seen each week we've been releasing or taking them over for the transport facet. And they're going to reduce to under 300 across the state. So we're seeing that movement already. So our numbers are down.
But have you been in contact and we're still willing to take them?
Yes, they are aware of that. Yes. Once, the courts start doing more sentencing, I'm sure we'll get more if they don't have placement.
Throw it back up, huh?
Yeah. That's all I
I
have.
just have one question for you on the bills this morning. We paid for some chairs for dispatch.
Yes, and those were requested in the budget. During the budgeting, those are, every year we've been just buying cheap chairs, you know, and when they're being used 24/7, and they're more ergonomic type chairs. So that was in the budget. It was discussed and you guys approved it. And so now those have arrived.
That's what I need to know.
Okay.
Any more questions for the sheriff? Okay,
All right,
thank you. Stay safe.
all right.
Abe, are you online?
Mr. Chairman, he sent me an email indicating that they did not have anything to report at this time.
Okay. So then we'll move on down to our agenda, to our next item, which are department head reports. First one up is Annette. Good morning.
Morning. I don't have a lot to report either. Tony is at a seminar this weekend, or this whole week. Yeah, with a broken foot. So. Marshall will be taking classes online next week and then taking her test the next Monday for the permit tech. I will be taking classes as well. Not quite sure when I'm taking the test yet. I got to see how the classes go. So,
And that's for,
the plans examiner,
what do you call it?
building plans examiner for commercial. Yeah. We're getting quite a few plans in, some really big homes already. Still writing some letters on the sheds and scanning when we can. And we're all back in the office, just trying to get ready for summer. That's all I got.
That's great. Sounds like you're on top of it.
And question?
Hold on. So tomorrow you guys are gonna be using the back room?
No, it'll be next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Okay, yeah,
Next Tuesday. We're gonna use that space, so in case you're in here.
for Tony to take his test.
Good.
Okay.
We won't be here Tuesday, will we?
No, but Dave's in here on Tuesdays.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you much.
thanks.
Skip, are you on the line? Yeah. Okay, it's your turn, bud.
So everything's going pretty smooth, not a whole lot to update. We did have a juvenile detention for 5 days. There's escalated behavior and we graduated sanctions until he earned his place there for a little bit, but he's back out. Outside of that, I'm just working on my goals, my little projects and plugging along.
Okay. So he's already served his 5 days and he's home now, or is he in now?
No, he's home now.
Okay. Any more questions for Skip?
Only question, Brian, and he just left, but he had asked for an office space potentially up there. I don't know if he ever talked to Skip, he did. Doug's
I
saying
don't know.
yes. Okay, Doug's saying yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked, and he was there last Friday. He came in for a while. And the judge's chambers they're wide open. There's also the courtroom. So I showed him around. I gave him a key to the building and let him know that he's welcome to use it whenever he wanted.
Okay, so like you handle it perfectly. Okay, any more questions for Skip? All right, thanks. Have a safe day.
Thank you.
Next person up is Melissa. She sent an email. She'd like to be in, but she is doing some kind of conference development. So we'll go on down the list. Pat. And Pat, you have an action item if you want to.
I
do this
do.
first.
Yeah, well, doesn't matter. I don't have much to report either.
Okay.
Except that we did finally get the sheriff's office part-time specialist position filled.
Oh, good.
That's been months in the working, so probably about a year. So that's exciting.
Is that part-time administrating?
It's part-time administrative assistant type. She'll do. So on the action item, when we, let me see if I could start this all over again.
Rewind.
Yes, geez. Last week when we did the training for the TTI, one of the things that we talked about was, gosh, everybody should do this, or our directors and stuff. So that's why this is on the list, is because you all would have to approve all of the director type of training or just debriefing between Budget-wise, I have in my training and development budget, which would go direct. It's all about training and developing people. So it'd be appropriate to use that budget for it. We have, I think, skipping. We have 3 people. I feel like I'm missing somebody. You have at least, so that already have done the assessment. So we would have the other.
Well, I think it's a wonderful way to kind of figure out how people communicate and how they perceive things. And we learned a great deal amongst each other when the 3 of us got together and did it. And that's why we thought this would be good for all. I think maybe we could set it up, we could do 8 or 10 a year until we get a lot of folks do this, but it really opens up how you handle your conversations with different people, and it's helping a great deal. But
I had one of the departments that said they really wanted to do it with their department. And I obviously don't have enough budget for the whole county,
Right.
but your training budget. So that could go through their training budget through with it, and we can make it work that way. The beauty of, obviously, of having the directors do it is that the directors can learn, and you can learn how to communicate with them. So it'll really open up, make things easier for everybody, as we
it's
found
really
out.
easy to do. It's an online
Yeah.
questionnaire, kind of like a survey. It takes
Yeah.
a while, but it's pretty easy to do. And then when you get the results back, you kind of learn a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. And it's important to never overthink it. People, if you overthink it, that's not, just do it.
That's all.
Strategic plan.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, and enhancing, improving our communication is a very good thing in my opinion, so I am totally in favor of allowing our directors to take this, and
You want to make that a motion?
I so move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? I hope everybody kind of gets on board as we. It's really good for self-evaluation. And got a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll leave that up to you now. Schedule and handle and budget and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll take care of it from here. One quick thing I did forget to mention, I did send out an all county email this morning reminding people that even though the CDH has changed the mask mandate to a recommendation, we still require masks within the county. And again, that's to protect everybody.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was my next topic with you is do we want to continue the practices we've been doing? And I think it kind of would behoove us all to kind of think about how we a date, and I know that's really hard to figure out right now because we don't know what to do that's in Canyon County. And for those who are unaware, it's the strain from South America, and it's extremely hard on kids from 2 to like 14. It doesn't affect older people like this virus does. This one's really hard on little kids. So we're watching that one really close, and everybody's staying on top of it so it won't spread. But
Well, I think we need to remember that as long as we have the disease here and as long as we have positive cases, we need to still be safe. My standpoint. I think as more people get vaccinated and the numbers go down, then obviously we can look at it then. But I don't want to, from my standpoint, I don't want to be premature and take the requirement away too soon and then we feel ill. So I think as soon as we can look at it in about June or July, and people are really tired of it, but by then the vaccines will be out to everybody. Everybody will have had an opportunity. So by then, hopefully the vaccines will have had time to do that. I would caution us to remove or, prematurely, and then we have problems.
well, that was our big discussion at the health issue. And one of the things that kind of ran through our minds is if we take the mandate out, we'll encourage people to get a vaccination sooner.
I hope so, but they have to be
I hope that's the
available.
way it is,
Yeah.
but as it is an advisory, and I would same thing you're doing now, and be smart about it, and
Yes,
Businesses can still require that. I mean,
Yes, they
that's
can.
important. And as a business, we still need to require this until our case counts are low in the county. Get it to where there's none.
no, I know that, but
I think we will eventually.
yeah,
It's gonna be hopefully less severe than the flu is every year, I hope. That's
Yeah.
the goal, but it depends on these new.
it depends on how many people get vaccinated, honestly. The virus is always going to be here. It's never going to go away, but, you know, it will just depend on how many people get. Goal for us as an employer is to keep our employees safe.
Still following state guidelines with the 6 foot
Mhm.
and, social distancing. Now, we need to talk about when we're gonna open up the courthouse a little bit. Fees opening, sheriff's gonna open up driver's license bureaus. We've been, but I think Doug, the clerk's office is still on appointment only, aren't they?
We specifically, but yes, we still are having individuals go online to make appointments, but we're not refusing any type of appointments. And if there are walk-ins, we allow those individuals. The reason for appointments in our office is just to make sure that if we have someone that just walks in, that the individual that making the appointment would be attended to first, and then the individual that just walks in would have to wait for the appointment to be handled first.
So that might be a best practice into the future. Is if you know that you need to get off work and you need to come in and get your passport at 10
Correct.
o'clock, that might be the best way to go anyway, and just keep some type of an appointment schedule going forward. It's better customer service.
Mhm.
So Doug, how do you think we're gonna handle when we start up jury trials? Is that gonna be challenging, or are we gonna be able to separate those?
So we do have a procedure for jury trials. All of the prospective jurors are screened prior to coming in. There's a questionnaire that they fill in. And then we will have to make sure that we're complying with the separation. The introduction still would be handled in the commissioner's room, but we would limit the amount of prospective jurors like we did the last time. Typically on a jury trial, there are between 30 and 45 prospective jurors that are selected. We would have the first round come in, watch the video, and then we would bring in the next round of individuals. So we do have a procedure in place to limit the amount of prospective jurors into the commissioner room as well as into the courtroom.
So I'm glad you're thinking ahead on this, because that's gonna be, where it's gonna get kind of challenging is these jury trials, but we need to do them and we need to get caught back up, so.
Commissioners, we do have a procedure in place right now.
Okay, so we'll just keep going the way we are and watch the numbers and go from there.
Yep. Okay.
Anything else?
No, that was all I had.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Anybody from IT? Don't think so. Planning and zoning, Cinda, good morning.
Good morning. We continue to be busy with all of our current applications. Still are issuing a number of short-term rental and recreational vehicle campground administrative permits. And need to work on a number of ordinance amendments. But my biggest concern right now is, this just came up Thursday or Friday, is the definition of subdivision according to the National Flood Insurance Program and FEMA. They say any split is a subdivision, which will be extremely impactful in the unincorporated areas of Valley County. If you have 1,000 acres and you split it into two 500-acre pieces, you have to determine the base flood elevation along the entire stretch. So that will be a huge impact.
How does that work then? Is that more like a topography survey where you basically just lay out that line of flood all the way through that parcel? I mean, is that an expensive thing, or is that?
It's a lengthy and expensive thing to determine the base flood elevation.
Is it a FEMA permit or is it an engineering permit or?
It's any split.
Who
It's-
determines the base level? Is it a local engineer or is it?
You'll have to
It's already
hire
in there.
surveyors and engineers to determine a base flood elevation.
No, this is only in parcels.
It's a hydraulic hydrology analysis.
Only parcels in the floodplain would have to do this, or.
Any parcel where a floodplain goes through it.
Okay,
Any parcel where a floodplain goes through it.
so.
You're talking the stretch of Valley County, Boulder, Lake Fork, Gold Fork. So it's their
It is what it
interpretation.
is.
Huh?
It is what it is.
I don't
We're
know,
not gonna change their
our
mind.
local, state, none of our codes state that a subdivision is any split of property. A subdivision for the state is anything into 5 pieces. Our local one is anything into 2 if it isn't exempted. So we're just having a difference of opinions on the definition of subdivision.
So if you run this through P and Z, how do they feel?
I just came up Thursday or Friday.
Let's run it through them and see what they come up with and then bring it to us. You know, my thinking is like when my sister won a lot, it was a 1 acre parcel that came out of a giant parcel.
You would have to do a base flood element
One lot sub,
on the North Fork of the Payette River. Yes, you would.
even though they're up on the
Yes.
side of the hill.
Yes.
But once you get that done, I'm assuming it's done for hard lots,
Until it moves.
which it does move.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a huge impact to us. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Would they have to go
Mm,
contact someone from down below or?
I don't know if anybody local can do the hydrology and hydraulics. Maybe, I don't want to say, I mean, I don't want to recommend anybody. They'd have to hire an engineer firm.
That's gonna be expensive. really.
So I think it might be worth a conversation. Because this is new. This is not how it used to be interpreted.
So our ordinance is if you split any parcel into 2, it's a subdivision.
No. Any parcel into 2 that's not an original parcel. An original parcel is something that was created in 1971 or a quarter section.
Which is 40 acres.
Right. But our ordinance says any subdivision for development that has 5 lots or 50 acres is the floodplain ordinance. So 5 lots or 50 acres, any subdivision of that. So any of these large pieces are over the 50 acres, so you can't split into even 20-acre pieces. So it would be a huge impact on everything. So,
Is there some kind of an administrative call that you would make to say, yeah, this parcel qualifies for this, or no, this parcel is not in the floodplain, so it wouldn't need that?
well, we have mapped floodplains, but most of our stuff is the undeveloped zone A's. So if it's an undeveloped zone A that goes through a large split, anything over 50 acres, then you have to develop the base flood elevation on that undeveloped zone A. So, I was looking at some of the,
Pretty far reaching, man.
yeah, it is. I was looking at some of those pieces up along the Gold Fork River. That would be a huge impact. I mean, 80 acres, that you can get, 4 20s out of. They'd have to do an analysis of the Gold Fork River.
Before that would be allowed to be split.
Yes,
So the original owner would have to do it.
yes,
The 80-acre owner would have to do it before they could split off 20s.
yes.
So that just means ground prices will go even higher because that will be passed on through those splits. It'll just become a part of the lot cost.
So,
Ground
and
prices will grow.
the twist in that is interpreting that definition of subdivision. I mean, even the state statutes allow 5 pieces before it's a subdivision by definition.
So maybe some what you could do is get us those definitions from the state, just something so we can look at it.
Sure. Or if you want to come
What
in, I
legal
can.
right we have to make a change? I mean, if FEMA says it,
Well-
that we can't change what FEMA's
The impact to us would be, and this might deserve a longer conversation. The impact to us is they might kick us out of the National Flood Insurance Program.
Right.
I mean, how many insurance policies do we actually have in the county?
We better have quite a few.
In the
We have
unincorporated
a
areas,
lot.
we've never allowed development, the floodplain.
Oh,
What, maybe 4 or 5?
I think when we dropped out of the CRS we had 12 policies. Policies, I don't know if they were in the floodplain though.
but even if you're not in the floodplain, like up Warren Wagon, when that culvert got blocked and people were flooded up there, I mean, you need to be cognizant of what the potential is, even if you're not in a floodplain area. There's a lot of water bodies in Valley County, but.
Well, I would run
So-
to P&Z and get their input on it too, on the definition, and we'll just keep working on it and see where it goes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to give you a heads up that, I can't even fathom it right now. Do we even allow properties to be split without P&Z approval? So, anyway, guess I leave you to that.
Anything else?
I can't think about anything else right now.
She threw a bomb and ran.
It makes no sense to me.
So I have one question for you. I've been getting, I think 3 calls last week about large short-term rentals.
Mhm.
The ones that are over 12.
They should probably call me and let me know.
I recommended that. I was just curious where we are as far as our ordinance and what we can do so I can give people a better answer when they do call. I looked on like the VRBO website and I think there were about 20 properties that are still advertising for 20 to 40 people.
Yeah, as soon as I know, we send them a letter. And then Oki and I will be working through some enforcement process. We've discussed it on a number of occasions, and the guy on top of Knob Hills is still doing his. The guy at Vista Point Loop is still doing his. The person up in Moon Ridge subdivision is still doing theirs.
So is this something that needs to come in front of us to find resolution to? I know Oki's working on it.
No,
And-
yeah, you guys are not in the process unless they appeal my administrative decision to the P&Z, and then it go to the P&Z, then it go to the Board of County Commissioners. So when you get those, I need to know which ones.
And you would probably recommend that, like, when we get those, or that we don't comment on them, we just forward them
Yes.
to you, and we don't say anything back to you.
Yes,
Is that what you could buy it if it does get appealed?
yes.
We may need an enforcement officer in the future. Is that what the final resolution is? I mean, Oki can only go so far, but we've got to have somebody to enforce it.
No, Oki is the final authority, or the prosecuting attorney is the final authority. They're the ones that would file charges. The code enforcement officer is just somebody that goes out and observes it.
And actually.
So that's
gets
something
the-
that Lori and I currently do right now. But, if we have a code enforcement officer, then it's just someone else in our office that can do those tasks for us. I mean, but if that House bill passes, what is it, 217? Or it's some new legislation, that's saying that counties, when they adopt ordinances, their only enforcement is to do an infraction for $25 up to a maximum of $75.
Oh, perfect.
And so the Idaho Planning Association we're strongly opposing that one.
I haven't heard about that one.
I haven't seen that one.
I wouldn't put it past them this year. They're coming out with some
Cal?
Tuesdays down there.
Yeah, it's extremely limiting. I mean, you could set up a munition station on your property and just get your $25 citation now and then. So,
$25 every day to run your
yeah,
business.
sure, but I'm making 600. What difference does it make?
Yeah, part of the cost.
So, that one, everybody needs to actively oppose.
Which bill number do you think it is?
I think it's 217.
It's a House bill or a Senate bill?
I believe it's a House bill. I
House bill.
just read it
It's not
quickly.
one we're not tracking at IAC, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'll send it to you because it would have serious consequences.
Let us know, then we can let Terry Gesser know
So,
how we feel about it, and
okay,
that's how it works.
right. So
Okay.
that, yeah, that's what, anyway, a code enforcer is not a final authority on anything. Okay.
All right, thanks, Cinda. Larry.
Good morning.
I just read that letter from those folks, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So we got the McCall final drive back into the CAT up there. It's our total cost is going to be right around $16,000 on that. And just as soon as we got that done, Cascade Cat started acting up. We dropped the valve, so we need to replace cylinder, piston, head. We got everything on order, but I will tell you, service out there is terrible. We got to bring parts in from 3 different states. And one of the outfits I called, he said, well, yeah, we've got it in stock, but we don't have enough people to ship anything right now. But they're going to ship it today. So we're working out, we're 3 people down, which isn't helping matters out at all. As far as the parking lots go, I'm gonna present a final letter next week. I got your guys' comments. I got the comments from Warren. I talked to Scott Corkle because there was a question: do we have the authority to boot anybody out? Yes, we do. Do we have the authority to tell people how to park in here? Yes, we do. They're having a meeting this afternoon adjusting our lease. I've asked him to add to it, and he said they're in agreement that we could charge in those lots as long as the funds are used for the maintenance of those parking lots.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
That's big.
Because the one kickback we're going to get, of course, is from the rental outfits. And I really want to be clear about this. Those rental outfits, we're giving them an opportunity to have a storefront. They're storing their equipment there. We're paying for the toilets to be cleaned. We're plowing the parking lot so they can have a business and run it, and yet they're really not paying or helping on anything. So it may seem like we're being strong on it. We want them there, but we want them to be a partner in this, not just take advantage of us.
So are you thinking maybe down the road, if we can charge if you want to leave something overnight, it's going to cost you so much a day, or?
That's a possibility. We were actually, one of the thoughts that have come up from different people are that we should charge for a business to be in there, $1,500, because it's a very, especially the rental guys. Those guys are, right now we're spending about, I'd say close to $5,000 a year just on cleaning toilets and getting the toilet pumped out at the end of the year and providing the portable toilets. That's $5,000 that there's way more rental people than there is anything else right now. And one thing that I finally realized, I've been asking, and I'm sure Commissioner Bingaman too, why all the Washington people this year? First, we thought it was, well, there was any snow, but the truth is, remember, they can't go to Canada. And a lot of those people went to Canada before, so they're here. And as I'm looking at the numbers, I get all those reports on the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers. I think we're going to be up close to 20% this year. So it's going to help out quite a bit. This will be the first time since I've been around here, or since we've ever had these programs, that we're going to actually be able to present you guys a budget next year that isn't a by guess and by golly, because we will have the numbers for the first time ever out of IDPR. That's, I can't tell you the relief that is to me. So that's where we are. You guys got any questions?
From the 3 that you're down, these are 3 groomers?
Yeah, all 3 of them are. One has a neck issue, bone spur that was pinching anyway, something in his neck.
So it's all health related stuff?
It's all health. One's health related. One of our guys, his grandfather, they flew him home to die in their house, and the whole family's there, and that's been going on for about a week now. And then the third one, I just had to let go. There was too many safety issues. And safety is our #1 priority out there.
So then, have you got with Pat? Are you going to hire more this year? You're just going to try and run it with what you got?
So I've got one guy that's moving down here that used to run a Thiokol, and I'm going to stick him up because the biggest challenge I have right now is the Challenger going into Warren and back. We like to run that 7 days a week. I can't have a guy running 7 days a week. I'm going to stick him in that cat and he'll learn it quickly and we'll be able to make that break. I've talked to another gentleman who actually runs a grooming program in Valley County, and he said he will come on full time with us next year. So I'm already working on next year's guys. We're going to run short the rest of this year. Just do the best we can.
Did IDL give you any kind of a fee structure that they would allow us to?
According to Scott, they're going to allow us to do anything we want as long as we can show, like we do on some of our, a line item that goes back to that parking lot. So they can track the funds in and the funds out. Yeah, we will spend normally for snow removal in those parking lots, I would say it costs us about $15,000 a year. This year, we're going to be $20,000 to $25,000. It's
So Larry, we'd be able to take those funds and use them on any IDL parking lot, not just for that specific.
I would bet we won't. I bet we're going to have to attach them to those parking lots, especially.
Something to think about with Scott.
Yeah, and I think that's probably not a bad thing for the beginning of this program, so we can really track it well and seeing what our needs are and expansion and stuff like that. But I think it's all good. Scott's made me feel pretty darn good about it. He's pretty positive that we can add. He's going to send it to us as soon as they get some rough words in there so we can make some adjustments on it and make them fit our process. So that's where we are.
So then I'm assuming down the road, when we get that permission from IDL, we're going to get together, we're going to sit down and we're going to say, this is what it's going to cost to park the car.
Yes.
Day use, night use, overnight use, whatever it is.
Yeah, I'll get recommendations from the advisory board. I'll get recommendations from you guys, and then we'll massage this stuff and we'll put it all together. And it's going to probably take the whole summer really to come out with. But by September, we will need to have it. Well, it'll be before that. Before Doug prints a budget, we're going to have our idea solidified.
Sounds like you're moving in the right direction.
Oh, this was a great conversation because we've been trying this for what, 8 years now? And to finally have it come, government takes a while.
Well, and I think that the people that will be paying the fee, if you have an idea on what you're going to spend those funds are, they're going to be a lot more willing to pay that fee. I mean, if they can see where their money is going to go, I think that will make it a lot easier. to
Commissioner, I have talked to thousands of people in those parking lots this year, and I've talked to them about anything from raising our fees. The state of Washington's fee for a snowmobile takes $71. We're $35. I've talked to all the out-of-state, in-state. What if we raise fees? What if we do this? Nobody complains. I mean, what we do compared to just going to skiing one day is actually pretty incredible that we can provide this type of a service for that little bit of a fee.
So in that, will you ask Scott too about, can we use it for a parking lot attendant? I mean, can you pay somebody to be up there on a Saturday and a Sunday?
Yeah, and I've thought about that, but our issue with parking lot attendants would be authority. Because he could say, a parking lot attendant could say, you go park there, and they can go park wherever they want to, because we don't have any personal authority to do anything about it. Everything's going to have to be up to the sheriffs for enforcement.
But if you had somebody up there.
Oh, it would be nice.
it
Yeah,
would be-
I agree 100%. Especially, of course, Adams County, high elevation would be a great one to have a parking lot attendant. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Ask if it can be for that. I mean, instead of just putting it back into the lot itself with bathrooms or, managing the parking lot would be a big asset also.
And I got
Is high elevation is state leased?
say it again.
High elevation is.
No, that's federal and that's Adams County. We did put some no parking signs up there that we consider suggestions because we really don't have authority to put them up there, but they're in places that were really hindering the people getting down the road. Yeah, and then I got a email from Sheriff Stambaugh about making sure I put stickers on all our signs about our codes because I did miss that, and so I've already
sheriff
ordered.
doesn't know that she's been.
I ordered 35 stickers already that are going to be done right away, so I can go stick them on all our signs.
Larry, did you get two for the Silver Trail signs as well?
Yeah, I've got plenty, so we'll put them on there too. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. And it's all fun. We're just moving right along.
One of the things I was gonna ask you is you mentioned, I think at the advisory meeting the other night, when we were gonna be running out of basically funds for grooming this year. What is your kind of projection on that right now?
So as I said, when we build our budgets, by guess and by golly, we actually got more money in than what our budget shows. So we're really crunching numbers right now. We've got all of our numbers. John's just waiting for today's bills to come through, and then we're going to crunch and actually make a decision on. Remember, I got to save about between 10 and 15% for spring maintenance. That's kind of been a rule over all these years, and it's worked out pretty close. But I talked about the possibility we'll have to shut down in some areas March 15th, which would be horrible. Mainly McCall area.
Well, you can probably go so far, just like at home. And
When the money's done, it's done. Yeah, absolutely right. But we'll try, what we'll do first is we'll start slowing our grooming down. We'll start grooming on the big days, Friday and Saturday. And because right now we're grooming 7 days a week as we can. And when we're not grooming, I got guys working on maintenance, and it's been a challenging year we also lost an O-ring in the front end loader this last week that we had to fix. So, we're not a bunch of mechanics, but we sure try hard to be. We pretend.
Okay, any more questions for Larry? All right, be safe, keep us in the loop.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, do you have anything you want to talk about or add? You're good?
Well, just here if you need me.
Okay, so our next agenda item is at 10:45, which is an executive session.
Let's go ahead and sign on to the
Do you guys
waterways.
want to participate on the,
We can get on that pretty quick. So we're gonna, how do I do this?
I don't even,
Can we turn it off until 10:45?
what I would advise commissioners is if it wasn't on the agenda to recess, if we'll just continue the live feed and you guys will participate in the waterways meeting from, if you want to go up until 11, that would be fine, and we can push that executive session for the afternoon. I would highly recommend to the commissioners that they keep their 11 a.m. matter because we have so many people calling in at that point in time.
I was just wondering, do we want to try to do the executive now and then log on to the conference in between?
So it's just.
Commissioner Bing, it's indigent and charity. I really think it's going to take just 5 minutes. So if the commissioners want to postpone that, that would be acceptable.
I'm under kind of a time constraint this afternoon as far as getting out of here, so
What time you gotta be under?
I need to be home at 5. I have a call at
I
5.
think we'll be okay. We'll be close, but if you need to leave, just
Okay.
let us know. So this time we'll recess until 11 o'clock.
And will you get the laptop on the projector?
I'll get it.
So it sounds like you're on a good track, just to kind of get things solved. When you do get to that point, it'd be good to have something filed that says that they are withdrawing their, support claim, you're satisfied with the response from the sheriff's office and no further action is required, just so we can get this filed. So.
Friends of Lake Cascade. In addition, we would like to acknowledge the creative services provided by McHale McKinsey Incorporated and facilitation services of Redfish Bluefish. We are two McCall consulting firms helping out this process, and we're very glad to be here. I'm going to screen share the agenda for today. Let me see. Okay, you can see today we're going to be looking at draft legislation on Big Payette and Cascade Lakes Councils Act. We'll look at the Payette Land Trust with Craig Utter. We're going to talk about septic systems, equip WaterSmart and other water quality programs, technical assistance and water quality loan program. And then we're going to talk about conserve, protect, and restore cold water fisheries and watersheds. That'll take us to noon, and we'll have a few minutes for Q&A. Okay, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Again, the title of this session is Draft Legislation, Big Payette and Lake Cascades Councils Act, or sorry, Cascade Lakes Councils Act. Roy Garrett will be presenting. Roy Garrett is a graduate of the Executive Management Program with the Dartmouth School of Business Administration and attended Georgetown University College of Law and the University of Idaho College of Law, where he received his Juris Doctorate. He is both a former Deputy Attorney General and Idaho Deputy Secretary of State and Deputy Prosecuting Attorney for Ada County. As founder of the Garrett Public Policy, a law firm in Boise, has an unsurpassed record of successful public issues management, lobbying, and regulatory law outcomes. Mr. Garrett is an active member of the community, donating much of his time to water quality issues and helping to write the original 1993 Big Payette Lake Water Quality Act. Mr. Garrett, thank you for joining us, and please take it away.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all of the sponsors of this summit. It's been an excellent exercise, long overdue, and so I compliment all of you who have made this happen. I think it's a real plus. As was mentioned in the opening, I was involved with the development of the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Act in 1993. The reason for that is twofold. One is a very good friend of mine, now deceased, Peter Johnson, was my boss when we worked together in the federal government back in the Bonneville Power Administration back in the 1980s. So when Peter returned home from Portland and did a stint as Bonneville administrator, I also came back to Idaho. At that time, I acquired property on Big Payette Lake, and so both Peter and I were property owners on Big Payette. We were concerned about the deterioration of water quality of the lake at that particular point in time, and so we did some considerable research on ways within which there might be some type of legislation that would address water quality on Big Payette Lake. And the result was the two of us drafting the legislation that did become law in 1993. That act created an 11-person water quality council. It was composed of local citizens as well as local government officials. It was charged with the development of two things. One was a comprehensive study of water quality in the lake, and the second was a long-term water quality management plan that was based upon the recommendations and findings that came from the study. The council received no state or local funding from the government. It was all privately funded. There was some money that came from the United States USGS, provided the funding for a study that was conducted by a limnologist with the USGS by the name of Dr. Paul Woods. That was a very detailed 2-season study that came back with the results that showed that there had been some deterioration in the water quality of the lake, in large part due to factors associated with nutrient load. The council developed a water quality lake management plan that did derive from the council, and it was very, very detailed. That plan took some considerable period of time in being established by members of council, assisted by a technical advisory panel consisting of federal, state, and local officials who played a very significant and very instrumental role in development of the lake management plan. By operation of law, the council disbanded after a period of time. The concept was that once the plan had been developed by the council, that then it would be a matter of local, state, and federal officials taking the plan and implementing on an ongoing basis. There was also a provision made for the various groups to get together on an annual basis to report progress on the various items that were contained in the plan. The plan also provided for the act, I should say, provided for very extensive public involvement, public education. You may recall that there were a number of brochures and posters and other things that were produced back in the 1990s and early 2000 timeframe that talked about ways within which the citizenry could take actions to improve water quality in the lake. Such things as not using any phosphated fertilizer, lawns, things of that nature. That worked out quite well, and it was a very active public involvement program. As the plan was developed well over 2 decades ago now, it is somewhat stale, if you will. In addition to that, as may have already been said in this summit prior to now, there is an ongoing University of Idaho study being conducted by Dr. Wilhelm, who I believe in fact guested appear in the summit proceedings. Dr. Wilhelm is actively involved in a 2-year study along with a graduate student to do essentially a replication of what Dr. Paul Woods did back in the late 1990s. The end result will be a series of recommendations and findings that will be implemented. And so it was with that concept in mind that I began working with the rest of the parties in bringing legislation, which is now House Bill 113, to the legislature this year. 2 things. One is to reestablish the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council so that it could receive the plan from Dr. Wilhelm and begin a process of updating that long-term lake management plan. And secondly, for the first time, establish a water quality council for Payette Lake, or excuse me, I'm sorry, for Cascade Lake.
Excuse me, Roy.
Yes.
Apologies for the interruption. Your audio appears to be skipping a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Sure, if it's the bandwidth or the. If it gets worse, I might interrupt you again, and we might have to just turn off your video.
Okay.
If it can't get through.
Well, let's just go ahead and I can turn off the video. Why don't we just do that and see if that helps a little bit.
Sounds good.
So, back to where I was at, and I'm sorry for the skip there. Back to where I was at is that we did introduce legislation week before last, House Bill 113, is designed to bring back both the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council and a step one for Lake Cascade. We had very strong support for that legislation from a variety of parties, the local governments, Friends of Lake Cascade, the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council Incorporated, among others, Trout Unlimited. Some way, the Lake Cascade Water Quality Council had operations of both the Bureau Rec as well as the irrigation districts that were represented by the Water Users Association. So rather than getting in a protracted battle at the legislature, I decided not to move forward with the legislation this particular year, but rather step back and do a couple of things. One is work with the water users to see if there are ways within which we can overcome their objections to the Lake Cascade Water Quality Council, and also to work through some issues that came up with the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. It may be, candidly, that rather than going back to the legislature next year, we can address some of these issues through the establishment of WAGs. I had just realized, or just learned actually, in the last several days that the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council was succeeded by a WAG, a Big Payette Lake Water Quality Group that was a watershed advisory group that was put together by DEQ. So I've had conversations with the director of DEQ about the possibility of, after the session, a group of us working with DEQ to see what ways we might be able, in an executive branch standpoint, develop that we could essentially conduct the same sort of business that would be conducted by the Payette and Lake Cascade Water Quality Councils. Because at the end of the day, the water quality councils really are designed to be a forum, a venue for all parties in interest to come together and have a collective discussion about the holistic ways that need to be employed to improve water quality in both bodies of water. In my judgment, that's something that has been missing for a period of time. I know that's true with others that I've worked with in the development of this legislation. And so all of that being said, I think that we'll continue to move forward, and either we'll resolve the concerns through, as I mentioned, executive branch action, or we may come back next year with legislation to deal with the water quality councils. I do think that probably, given the rather significant differences in the composition and makeup of the two lakes, Payette, and one bill that would deal with Lake Cascade. So with that, Gary, that is my prepared remarks. I would be more than glad to respond to questions that people might have.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation. Let's look, does anyone in our attendees have any questions? You can post them in the Q&A box. Or do any of our panelists have any questions?
Do you know any wags?
No.
I can't let a guest go without any questions. That's a missed opportunity. Mr. Guerin, how about by looking forward, 20 years down the road, what would you like to see happen in regards to water quality on both lakes, this part of the watershed?
Well, a couple things. One is I really do believe we need to have this robust, comprehensive, collective discussion that I'm talking about. The governor mentioned that in his opening remarks about how important it is to be collaborative in the development of water quality programs. And not to say that some of that's not ongoing now, but I do think the establishment of a comprehensive, active way of the Anti-Wreck Council would be a major step in improvement of water quality. And then I would like to see very active programs involving best management practices, other activities that would relate to the improvement of water quality, all actively and comprehensively moving forward, that are well funded. I think one of the issues I've noticed over time is that so much of what needs to be done is not funded in some way. And I've had conversations with legislators and with other interested parties about trying to find some mechanisms over the longer term that would provide funding for enhanced water quality, particularly in some of these major bodies of water like the two lakes that we're talking about here in Valley County.
So thank you. We've got 3 questions in our Q&A. One is, would you hope to establish one WAC for the entire watershed, or do you envision multiple?
I envision multiple. Just the research that has been done over the last week literally shows that there is a WAG in place for Big Payette Lake. And so my intent is to kind of aggressively follow up as to why it's not been functioning. The documents I saw, which were signed by the director of the department back in 2004, did establish one WAG for Big Payette Lake. I think a separate one needs to be established for Lake Cascade. What I've learned in this experience is that even though there's a commonality between the two lakes in terms of some of these water quality issues, I do think that they are very unique and separate bodies of water that require different types of approaches that I think would come from the WAGs.
So I think you've got a few more questions. What are some specific objections that the water users have put on the table?
Well, their most significant objection related to the WAGs. They believe that the councils would be redundant and duplicative of what a WAG would do. And so that was why, among other reasons, they thought that this would be a problem. Their concern was that in some way, the actions from a council would impact key issues to them, which is the drawdown of water from Lake Cascade for irrigation purposes and for fish flush. They felt that there could be a possibility that the councils in some way would have a negative impact on that. We didn't really get to a level of discussion where we talked about specifics there, but that was a concern that they had in some considerable measure. So those are the key issues that they have that we're going to spend some time working through and either get away or legislation.
Thank you. The stage is set for a watershed advisory group regardless of future legislation. You kind of talked about this a little bit, but see any difference in what the WAG and legislation could accomplish?
You know, as a practical matter, probably not. I think the point made by the water users is a relevant one, and that is that there is redundancy between the two. However, the fact that the councils would be gubernatorially appointed, I think that it kind of rises their stature, if you will, in terms of their ability to address particular issues. It also very specifically called out that the council is to conduct a study and to develop a long-term water quality plan. That's not contained in the WAG statute, but that's not to say that administratively a WAG could not perform those same functions. And so that's part of what the research is going to be. That's a part of what the dialogue is going to be starting at the end of this legislative session with DEQ. I do want to compliment DEQ. They were extremely helpful in the development of the statutory language that became House Bill 113. I worked with the director and members of his staff. They're clearly committed to improving water quality and are looking ways for that to be done. Where I left it with the director is, as I mentioned earlier, we'll begin this dialogue and do some additional research starting after the legislative session to see if there are executive branch ways to get the same thing done that a legislative council will do.
Let's get 2 more questions. We've got just enough time for that. Warm Lake has been discovered by tourism to the extreme. As a cabin owner at Warm Lake, I lost 24 inches of shoreline last summer due to wake surf boats, wake boats, and jet skis. Can something be done immediately to restrict these water vessels from the lake? Phosphorus is being disturbed from the shoreline and the lake bottom, contributing to algae bloom in addition to the aforementioned. Any thoughts on Warm Lake?
Yeah, I do. And first I want to compliment the Valley County Commission in that, as you may or may not know, they have just recently concluded an RFP process within which they have retained a consultant to help them with those particular issues. They want to develop a comprehensive lake management plan for all of the major lakes in the county, including Warm Lake. And one of the things that they're going to address specifically is the impact of these wake boats, these wet boats as they're known, on shoreline erosion, on the turbidity, on other problems associated with water quality. So that's one answer. There is a process ongoing that, as I understand it, is going to take 2 years. Secondly, and I think very importantly, Dr. Wilhelm, in his work on Big Payette Lake, will have as one of the deliverables from that study a formula, a process by which certain inputs can be made into an allocation formula or into a formula. And that formula will then derive what the no wake zone should be for a boat from the shoreline. Because it's not a one size fits all. The current 300-foot no wake zone for the lakes is not one that's going to work throughout all of the lakes. And so his study, I think, will be very instrumental in terms of developing that mechanism, which then can be used by the commissioners in this process that I just described.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you for your time and your presentation. We've got a few questions in the Q&A. If you can look at that, we'll try to answer those, but I'm going to keep going on to our next presenter with the Payette Land Trust. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so this next section is titled the Payette Land Trust as an Alternative. Craig Utter, Executive Director of the Payette Land Trust, will be presenting. Craig grew up in the small mountain town of Evergreen, Colorado, not unlike McCall. He owned and operated a ranch in the Sandhills of Nebraska before moving here in 2006 to work for the Forest Service as a firefighter with the Crassel helicopter crew.
Craig's getting
He has
older.
worked 3 seasons in Antarctica
We're all
at
getting
Carter
older.
Research Station, providing cargo and helicopter support to the National Science Foundation. He also works for the St. County Foundation, coordinating the Nebraska Leopold Conservation Award, which recognizes landowner achievement in voluntary conservation. Craig became the Executive Director for the Payette Land Trust in November of 2017. Craig, take it away.
Thanks, Gary. I really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for providing this format to talk about the Payette River Basin. I'm going to share a screen. So I hope that's coming across good. I think what I want to start with real quick is some information about the Payette Land Trust. So some quick stats about us. Because I'm sure there's some folks out there maybe who are unfamiliar with us, but we've been around for 28 years. We work in 4 counties. We are property owners. We own 2 properties that were donated to the land trust. We currently hold about 10 easements on private property, and we're working on 5 more easements. We have a volunteer board of 8 members and 1 full-time staff person. And you can see that we work right in the heart of Idaho, and water quality and these issues we're talking about today are really core to what we're trying to accomplish. We have 3 major river systems in our working area. So that's the Payette River Basin, the Weiser River Basin, and the Little Salmon River Basin. So we're kind of right at the the headwaters of a lot of the water that goes on down to the Columbia. And our main goal as a nonprofit is to work with private landowners. So we function mainly in that world of working with folks who own land, who want to see their conservation ethic, moved off into the future. One thing that we like to talk about is that Payette Land Trust thinks in perpetuity. As a land trust, all of our easements are in perpetuity, and that's our mindset. So we really look at what we're doing, the people that we work with, and the projects that we take on have to really live for the lifetime. Our easements are attached to the property, so they're deed restricted, which means that as a private landowner may sell their ranch, their farm, their house, their timber property, whatever that might be, our easement stays with that piece of property, and it extends off into the future and future landowners. So that's one of our jobs, is to steward the easements forward and work with those landowners that come after the folks who decide to place an easement on their property. One of the things that the Land Trust does is really try and work on building broad relationships, because we work with all different kinds of folks on all different kinds of lands. A land trust, in a sense, is always about 20 years behind. And what I mean by that is once we become involved in a project, it's usually because development has started to put pressure on a working farm or ranch or a timber parcel or somebody's individual piece, and they're feeling that the development is coming and they want to do something to secure their ethic on their property. And usually once development shows up and the prices that come with development, it becomes very expensive. So what we're trying to do is not only catch up to the issues here in West Central Idaho, but also try and get out ahead of those. And we do this by building relationships and trying to come up with initiatives that really do think out into the future. And so in June of 2019, the Payette Land Trust really started to focus on the Payette River Basin as our core working area. So we took a 20,000 foot view and said, what is important within the Payette River Basin to private landowners and conservation? And by creating our Payette River Basin Initiative, I think it helps us to focus on that. And here are some pictures of us unveiling that to Governor Little in June of 2019. And it was on the shores of the Payette Lake where we did this. Why do we want to work within this area? Well, as everybody's talked about, this Payette River Basin is key to water quality. It's key to agriculture, and it's really key to the economic development of our county here. So the focus area of the PLT is looking at a half-mile buffer around the river and the lakes from the inlet of Payette Lake to the Compartment Bridge. And that's a self-imposed buffer. We kind of decided that we would like to talk to anybody who has properties within that area. It doesn't have to exist fully within that area, but we want to talk to people and say, what can we do to conserve your land as it is and then work to improve it? So the Payette Land Trust already has some properties that we've worked with in this area. This is why we want to focus on it. We want to expand on the positive work that we've done. These two existing conservation easements on the Nahas and the Blackhawk, as you can see here, have been around for a while. These are started back in 07 and 08, but we've had 653 acres of conservation that has prevented development along the river. And in the last few years, as we've become more of an active group, we said, how can we link these? And if we can link these conservation easements through a corridor, can we do that all the way from the inlet of the Payette Lake down to the Compartment Bridge? So when we started to think about that, we said, okay, what are the main project areas that we feel like we can gain support and partnership on? Because we know that we don't do this in a vacuum. By conserving land through conservation easement, it allows for other opportunities to exist into the future. So the three areas that we really picked to decide to focus on were the Payette River Access Project. And if you've spent any time looking at ownership along the Payette River, you know that a lot of it is in private ownership. It's very difficult to access the Payette River. And in reality, you can get on the Payette River at the Sheet Bridge across from the jump base, but it's very difficult to get off of the Payette River. There aren't very many places you can do that. So if you float the river, if you want to stick within the bounds of the law, you have to float down to Smiley Bridge to get out. It's a significant flow. It's about 8 river miles. Now, traditionally, a lot of us don't necessarily do it that way. There are traditional pullouts where nobody really cared if you pulled out or not, but they're all private. And with the change in the trespassing laws, with the change in ownership, as people start to pay significantly more for land along the river, they're not going to want to see you pull out in their backyard. So we're trying to figure out ways of creating access points, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Payette Lake Conservation Project, if you paid any attention to what's going on with endowment lands over the last couple of years, you know that area around Payette Lake, most of it is in endowment, and there's questions about how that land will be managed into the future. Ironically, PLT got involved with this issue before the Trident folks came along, and we were lucky to have some understanding and insight to how we might be able to play a part. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And then we want to look to conserve the agricultural heritage within the basin. And we really look at ag corridors as being hugely important because they also provide wildlife corridors and the potential for access as well. We see that ag land is the primary area where we convert from open space to development. So I want to focus real quick on the Payette River Access Project and what we can do as a land trust thinking ahead into the future. So this area that we're looking at is 44 acres off Moon Ridge Drive, and it's nestled within some subdivisions. It was supposed to be another subdivision. At one point, it had 44 homes planned on it. And over the years, it just never happened for a lot of reasons. But the Payette Land Trust went in and looked at it and said, this is a key area. It's one of the bigger intact pieces of property that also has access to Moon Ridge Drive. What can we do? So it was listed at 1.2 million. The PLT found some conservation buyers who went in, negotiated down the price, and are willing to put conservation easements on it and then resell it to the community for about 350,000, which is incredible because 44 acres along the Payette River right now would probably bring more than 1.2 million and it would have homes and restrict access. So we've effectively, through use of conservation easements, removed about $850,000 worth of value. And what I mean by that is the owners are receiving value through a tax incentive that comes with donating a conservation easement, but it gets the community in at a price that we can afford. So we're starting to embark on a fundraising campaign in conjunction with the Payette River Walk Alliance, which is a group that was formed by individuals who will benefit from this to open this up to the public. And you can find out more about that at the PayetteRiverWalk.org. The Payette Lake Conservation Project, the one part of the endowment issue that the Land Trust is really focusing on are going to be Parcel H and Parcel G. And the reason we're focusing on this area is that we feel it's a piece that we might have success with, and it really conserves all of Eastside Drive. As you'll note, these values that IDL, the Idaho Department of Lands, has put out in their Payette Endowment Land Strategy that was put before the Land Board in December, shows that the development value has really outweighed the timber value. And so it puts this property in a space where they need to have revenue gap filled. So the Land Trust says, well, we'll try and do that through the purchase of a conservation easement at full market value, which would involve raising those funds. But currently, there's no avenue for conservation easements on endowment property. So how do we do that? We're working with IDL to have an avenue created. It's very complex. It's never been done before. A lot of legal questions, but we decided we just have to start somewhere to figure it out. So the Land Trust is working to do just that, to put in an application on these two properties, find out if we can have an easement. The easement would allow for traditional uses, so logging, agriculture, recreation can still exist in this area. And we're trying to find ways to partner and keep these lands open, because again, we know that logging, grazing, recreation doesn't happen in somebody's backyard. So if this turns over to development, those potential leases and uses that IDL may have in the future disappear, as well as it really does change the landscape for the area. And the underlying component to all this is, again, water quality. By limiting development, we can also provide the opportunity to have avenues to increase water quality. The third project area under the initiative is agricultural heritage. These stats are some quick ones that I threw up from the American Farmland Trust. But what it really starts to talk about, it's something that we already know. Idaho is changing. People are moving here. And the place that they want to come to isn't prepared to handle the influx of private residents. We're doing a great job of finding a way to increase our economic development. So the opportunities for jobs are coming. Idaho is one of the last states that was sort of discovered in the West. So we're seeing that, we're feeling it. I grew up with that in Colorado. As Denver came out of its slump in the 80s, the boom to live in the mountains just was overwhelming, and we saw these small towns just being inundated with people moving to the area. So I think one of the things that we're working with is trying to find programs that are already in existence, and through NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and through the Farm Bill, there's a program called ALE, Agricultural Land Easement Program. And this helps fund the purchase of easements of agricultural landowners. The problem with this is there's not enough money allocated to Idaho for all the need, and it takes a lot of work, and having staff to help these landowners navigate these very complex federal programs is difficult. So we have to figure out how to change that for us. It's a good thing, or it's a good way to think about conversion of agricultural land is that a house is the last thing you'll ever plant on a piece of property. So if you can conserve agricultural areas, you still have all the opportunities for restoration, habitat improvement, all those sorts of things. By no means is the Payette Land Trust anti-development. We just think there's places that development makes sense, and there's other places we should leave alone from that development. So we're really an on-the-ground organization that tries to find balance. How do we find this balance in the areas that we want to see conservation happen? And as Gary really mentioned, it's a vision for the future. So what do we see for the future? I think by focusing on agriculture, wildlife, access corridors adjacent to water, whether it's the Payette River Basin, whether it's the Weiser River Basin or the Little Salmon, that we can bring together all of the folks who want to see some form of conservation happen. We can bring those together. We can look at conservation easements, stem the tide of development in those areas, at the same time actually increasing the possibility for economics in our area. How do we do this? We're going to need to see more staff from our standpoint. We're going to have to really look at upping our conservation areas that we can affect, and we're going to have to start dealing with what everybody's dealing with, and that is funding. How do we get acquisition funds started? How can we join together to make those funds go farther? Some ideas are water funds. We see that used effectively out east, eastern part of the U.S., to look at downstream water users that benefit from conservation on the upstream. I think we all know that conservation is cheaper than restoration. I believe Duke Energy did a little bit of a study on that, and it costs them 8 times to restore an area versus conserve it in the first place. So we want to move Idaho in that area and work with our current landowners. And we want to see more public access on these waterways so that we can really have that feeling of connectivity, because I think that's important as well. As we have all the new folks who are moving into this area. With that, there are all kinds of things to talk about, Gary. I'm going to stop my screen share there and try and answer some questions. I think I've got a few minutes left. We'll sort of do the best we can.
Yeah, no, this is great. And again, it's all about engagement. So just having time to get the attendees involved is fantastic. We've got a question right now. It says, does the Payette Land Trust implement retiring federal and or state grazing rights associated with private property? This would be similar to the Nature Conservancy purchasing the 45 ranch in Owyhee County and retiring it or reducing cattle grazing, and finally reselling the property to private interests with restrictions and easements in place. This allowed additional funding for the Nature Conservancy to purchase additional lands, recycling the benefits.
I think that's a question that usually goes with a specific property. That specific property had that opportunity. I would say that our first and foremost priority is to work with the landowners, whoever has that property, whether it's a agricultural interest or even just a single piece of private land that's 40 acres that somebody wants to conserve, and say, what do you want to see happen? What do you have? What is your ethic going forward? We want to find balance. So if having those grazing rights attached and somehow retiring them is a benefit to the balance of the area, that would be a consideration. Is it a main goal? Not necessarily. We want to see our agricultural properties continue to operate and be vibrant. That is what adds to this part of Idaho. This is what adds to the wildlife corridors as well as the ag corridors and the scenic and open views. So that's a really specific question that goes with a specific piece of property. And if that came up, we think about it, but it's not a driver.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. Quickly, how does PLT or the Payette Land Trust raise funds, and how are those funds currently being used? Got 30 seconds for that one. And the next one is, tell me about what the Payette Land Trust thinks about wildlife corridor mapping.
So funding, we're nonprofit. Right now, we live off the generous donations of people in the area. Currently, those funds go to our general operations. If we have funds that go specifically towards a project, we have fund accounting, which we can allocate those funds for specific projects. So that's acquisition of easements, things like that. So donate. We also write grants and try and find matching dollars for those. As far as wildlife corridor mapping, I think the more we become involved with partners who can provide those tools to us, we work with a lot of pro bono right now. So the GIS that goes with wildlife corridor mapping, we can overlay that with development that can help provide even more of a reason to focus on conserving an area, the more the better.
Excellent. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for your presentation. There's one more question that I think you'll definitely want to answer in the Q&A. If you find that on your lower screen, you can kind of open that up and type a response in. But we're going to go on to Peter. Again, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, let's see here. 10:46, Peter. We cut into your time a little bit. This is, we're going to talk about septic systems with Peter Adams, a wastewater analyst, the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. Peter is a wastewater analyst with the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. I just heard the same thing twice. Well, we know who Peter is. Peter, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Gary. And I'm just getting over a cold, so I apologize if my voice is a little shaky. But I am a geologist by training. I'm the on-site wastewater coordinator for DEQ. So I work with all 7 health departments, including Central District Health and the DEQ regional offices on wastewater issues and septic permitting issues. I'm going to talk today about failing septic systems. Let's see if I can share that. Really good? Okay. Just making sure it's on the screen. All right, so I wanted to, in the interest of keeping things simple and not getting overly technical, I wanted to start the presentation off with how a septic system works, because a lot of people don't really, know exactly how it works. So I'll just do that really quickly. Before I do that, we can go over some of the things I'm going to talk about in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about how septic systems works, kind of an overview of them and drain fields. I have some Valley County specific septic data that I wanted to share. And the kind of meat of the presentation is what is the cost of a septic system failing, especially when a lot of them fail in a small area. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what we can do, some options, and I will take questions. So just to start off, this is a picture of a standard septic tank. They don't always have the divider in the middle, but this is kind of how they work. Septage from a house or a property goes into the inlet and collects, and the solids are put at the bottom, or filtered out at the bottom, and then the effluent goes out the outlet pipe. So the purpose of this design is to keep all the solids at the bottom and not going into the drain field where it can get clogged. There's some other things in here that you may or may not have, like an effluent filter, but this is the basic design. This is a graphic of how a drain field typically looks. So you can see here you've got your septic tank coming from the house, and then from the septic tank, you have your drain field. And this is just a typical drain field. It's just some trenches with gravel in it. Again, I'm being very simplistic just for the sake of not getting too technical, but all the solids collected in the septic tank, and then the wastewater, the effluent, comes and seeps into the ground over time through the drain field. And the idea, and when it works, it works. But the idea is that the soil is enough to filter out sort of contaminants and pollutants before it gets into groundwater. And that's a big problem if there's shallow groundwater, but I won't get into that. This is a standard system. So, and we can come back to that if anyone has any questions about it. This is based on recent, we do audits every year of different health districts and how many permits they issue. And as you can see, like everyone has been saying, Idaho is booming right now. You can see it went from, in 2019, being around 80 septic permits issued in Valley County to over 140. So they're not quite double, but Central District Health was very busy. And not all of these are new permits. Some of them are repair permits or expansions, but the majority of them are new. So I just wanted to show this. I realize that parts of the area we're talking about might be in Adams County or others, but generally it's mostly in Valley County, so I wanted to show this. Development is around Donnelly, Cascade, McCall, and all areas in the county. This is just a very telling graph that we have to keep up with this kind of thing, because if we just get lax and don't innovate and don't come up with new ways to keep the public safe and the environment safe, more and more septic systems are going to get installed and possibly fail. This is a summary of what we basically are trying to do at DEQ and the health districts. Septic systems are considered failing when it doesn't protect health, safety, and the environment of people of Idaho. The system fails to accept black waste and wastewater, so if it's blocked or you lose access to it, that kind of thing. Or the system discharges wastewater into the waters of the state, such as Lake Cascade or the Bear River, or under the ground surface. And below you have a kind of a standard picture of what it looks like. Sign that if you see this in your yard, you need to contact. This is a bad sign, especially if you know that your septic tank or drain field is in this area. This means that this is full of solids, or this pipe right here is blocked, or the pipe leading to the drain field. So what happens then is all of this gets full of solids, or this gets blocked. That wastewater has to go somewhere, so it's going to come and oops. Sorry, guys. It's going to come out on the ground surface right here, or if it's near a stream, it's going to just run off into the stream. That's a bad thing. Replacing a system that is really expensive, especially if you haven't paid for it. I mean, it has to happen to everybody. Every property, their septic system is designed at maximum to last 30 years, which is kind of a shocker to a lot of people. A lot of people hear that and they're like, well, I've had a system for, I've lived here for 35 years and never even thought about it. And well, you're very fortunate. It's kind of a miracle that your system hasn't failed if you've pumped it or done anything to it. But generally, every 20 to 30 years, septic drain fields have to be replaced. This is kind of a standard picture of a gravelless drain field being installed on a property. It's just to kind of give you an idea of what goes into replacing a drain field. So this next section I'm going to talk about is the cost of failing systems. What happens when a septic system fails in regards to the cost to public health and cost to the environment. So public health wise, there's kind of two big things that can happen. There's nitrates that get released into the groundwater and surface water. Nitrates, you might have heard of this thing called blue baby syndrome. It's rare, but it can happen. It happens when newborns are exposed to drinking water that have high nitrates, and it essentially limits their oxygen, the way that they can process oxygen. That's kind of I guess the pun intended, the poster child of nitrate contamination, but there are other problems with it as well. The other issue is E. coli, total coliform. These things in themselves are generally are not as harmless as some of the other things, but they're used as an easy test to tell if there's other pathogens in the water. So obviously E. coli can make you sick, but not all types, and not all types. These are just the indicators that there's other problems, other contaminants in your wastewater. And obviously I put this picture on here because if these contaminants get into surface water, dogs, cows, any sort of other livestock drink this water and get sick, as has happened in the past. So as far as solutions, what can we do? There's a couple things we can do. One really good option is to test local private wells around Lake Cascade and around the area. These wells can be sampled for nitrates and E. coli, and that kind of helps you map out where the sources of contaminants are coming. Helps you figure out if there is a failing septic system nearby, or if there's an entire neighborhood of failing septic systems, that kind of thing. And these tests have been done in the past, and like I said, testing for total coliform is a really easy test, and it helps save the cost of testing for some of the more complicated pathogens. Another thing that we do every year is spread awareness about septic pumping, and this is kind of the meat of my presentation. My big takeaway, I guess, is pump your tank every 3 to 5 years is what should be happening. And you'd be amazed. There's people, like I mentioned, who have never pumped their septic tank, and they just somehow miraculously it kept working. There's other people that, it's come back to bite them and cut expensive replacement costs. So septic tanks, no matter the system, no matter if you think you're the exception, have it pumped at least every 5 years. And then the other thing we do in conjunction with the EPA is we can participate in septic smart meters. The information campaign. So, we provide flyers and infographics and information to whoever wants it, essentially, and distribute these things, go to mailboxes and just put a flyer in. And it says, I have an example of it here in the presentation. The flyers just say, how to be a good septic owner, what you need to be doing year by year. But again, big takeaway, septic tank pumping, that really helps keep them from failing. There is also a couple other more difficult options, but they're definitely possible. You can consider a local ordinance, or at a county level, city level, something like that, requiring septic maintenance and reporting. This is something that's been done with plenty of our neighbors and a lot of other states, particularly Alaska and Montana are two good examples. And I provided some links at the presentation for how they handle it, but it's simple enough, especially, I believe it's, I can't remember the county in Montana, but one of the counties has established an ordinance where you have to report to the county or to the health district that you've got your tank pumped in 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And it just helps them keep track of, who's being a good septic owner and taking care of their neighbors, because that's what this is all about. This isn't about your property. This is about your neighbors and your neighbors' pets and livestock and all that. So we're, as the Department of Environmental Quality, our main goals are to protect the environment and public health.
They're reporting all correctly. I don't know the answer to that. I would assume so. We're hoping so.
I forgot about today.
Oh, good. Yeah. That's one of the goals.
So I think what I'll do is move on to Jeff.
Yeah, I'll let them know that we're probably gonna be a little bit later with that matter.
Are we on?
Yes, sir.
Wait for Dave to get back and then we'll get started.
Commissioners, this is David Shunke,
joining the call representing Landmark North subdivision.
Okay, thanks, David. We'll get to you here in just a bit.
Thank you.
We have anyone else on the line?
Yeah, you got Russell Alloway, wanted to chat about 161 Meadow Clay.
Russell, how do you spell your last name, Russell?
Yep, Allaway.
Okay, anybody else on the line? Okay, so at this time, we're gonna go on down to our agenda. Our next item is road and bridge presentation, Jeff McFadden. We have some action items. Zoom Lane, Landmark North, and 161 Meadows Place. Jeff, we'll turn it over to you.
Morning.
Good morning.
A couple of these have been kind of on the agenda for a little while, been kind of going back and forth, doing research. I can't find anything on any of these roads that says we will take over maintenance. I don't know if I'm missing something. Cinda's looked a little bit. It just says dedicated to the public. It's up to basically you three to decide what we take, what we don't take, with input from me. As the road department superintendent. We have three of them on the agenda today. I brought plat maps for all three of them. Landmark North, who is that on the phone? David? David, okay.
Yeah.
So if he's on the phone waiting, he was first to speak up, we can go with that one first.
Sure. Okay, so we'll do Landmark North request for year-round maintenance.
Do you want it up on here so we can actually see where these are? Or do
If
we
you
need
want
that?
to, if it would help you three, I kind of
Yeah,
know.
because I don't know where some of these roads are.
Okay.
I don't either. Will you? And how close they are and all that good stuff to.
Yep. So once you get that turned on, go to Herrick Lane, Round Valley.
Let me see I know what this is. Where is our?
That will be at LLCY.
Jeff, is there a road name on the?
Gammon, Emma Loop, whichever one of those you want to punch in. So you can just enlarge that picture right there. And go ahead and enlarge it more, or shrink it, I mean.
I want to shrink it.
Yes, there we go. That's pretty close.
Okay, so Herrick.
Okay, so Herrick, we plow off of Herrick to where Ski-Doo Place comes onto it. Gammon off to the north, turns into Emma Loop. It makes a big loop out. Yep, you're on it. If you just follow that all the way around, it just makes a big loop. Comes right back to where it was. There you go. Yep. So that is a gravelled road. I'm not sure, according to, I believe it was David that's called our office a couple times, it was brought up to county standards, but I haven't looked at it. That plow route down there right now is taking my plow driver anywhere between 8 and 10 hours. That little section of road just kind of going off of kind of the speed we plow, the intersections, the hills, the sharp corners, probably going to add close to probably an hour and a half to 2 hours on her time. I haven't looked at it in the capacity of taking it over because this all came up within the last few months. So
Jeff, what are we being asked to take over?
The
whole loop?
David, correct me if I'm wrong. You want year-round maintenance on this road, correct?
Yes, that's our request.
David, who's plowing it now?
Well, the subdivision was built in 1990, and we began, we were always led to believe it was a private road, and so we just naturally assumed road maintenance. Each year we contract with someone. Sometimes we've had residents here that have maintained the road, but currently we have Brad Howlett, who's, I believe, located up out of Clear Creek, maintaining that for us for the last couple of years.
And David, what made this change? Why now are you requesting county maintenance?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the answer is that it's a little bit strange because, over the years, we have made requests to the county numerous times to, at one point, simply to maintain the road to the Y. And we were told straight out, time and time again, that it was a private drive. And so the county had no interest in doing that. And so we just continued to maintain because, we were led to believe it was our road. So we would, we just responded, and it was only just this year that a lot was developed near the entrance of our subdivision, but outside of our subdivision, and they wanted to tie into our road. Through that process, it was discovered, Cindy Hurd revealed that it was actually a county road, and which was a great shock and surprise to us. And so that's what triggered it. They would see if it's a county road, do we have permission to work on it? Do we have liability relief? I mean, and why are we maintaining the road when Snow Haven next to us is maintained? And so that's what triggered the request.
Okay, so your plat does state it's a private road, so we'll ask a few questions.
No, it was a
It's
private road until May of 1990, and then it became a public road in 1990. It was private for the first 10 years of its life.
Jeff, did the commissioners accept it and it was recorded and all that stuff, or?
I'm here for that too.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No, that's fine. But yeah, we
One
have-
of us would like to state your name, please, for the record.
Carla Draper, Karla Draper.
Carla, you live somewhere, I take it, on Emma Road?
We have a cabin on the road that we use part-time, and I'm the secretary treasurer for the HOA board.
So do you know anything about when this was deeded to the public?
Is correct. May of 1990, the quitclaim deed is recorded with the county.
So we have,
The county took it, I understand.
Well, they accepted it as a public road. Like I said, there's nothing in the paperwork anywhere, just ask with these other two roads that says anything about us taking over maintenance. So this is where it comes down to you three to decide if we want to do maintenance on them. Do we do winter maintenance on them? Do we just do summer maintenance?
Carly, did you say your name was Carly, right?
Carla,
Carla, is there any permanent residents in there?
There are 5 currently, and we just sold 2 lots this year that are getting ready to be built on this summer, and one of them is for sure a permanent resident. Will be building in the spring. And the 5 are scattered all the way around the road.
Is there about 40 lots in there?
There are 50 lots, 40 homeowners, and approximately 30 cabins. I don't have that for sure. I looked at it again this morning as a flat map, but 50 lots, but there are several owners own more than one lot. And so there are 40 homeowners.
What I would like to do, I mean, this winter's almost over, is to wait for the snow to go and then actually go out there and look at it. They said I went around it last year because I did a couple of approach permits on it, but I wasn't looking at it in the capacity of us maintaining it. Is it brought to county standards? I don't know. I don't know if it's just a cut and fill type road and then they just put a little gravel on it. I don't know.
So
What
count,
about the other roads, Skidoo and?
So Skidoo, that is our maintenance. So we come off of Herrick, go up the road about 300, 400 feet maybe off of Herrick. Then we turn right on Skidoo and go to the end of Skidoo, which is a little cul-de-sac.
What about the other ones, Price Loop?
We,
Skunk Creek Road, I know.
Price Loop is private. We do Skunk Creek. There's a road, it's called Heights Loop. It's off of Skunk Creek, about where Summit Drive is. Across from Summit Drive, there's a little road that goes back to the left that makes a loop. That's Heights Loop. We do that one. Liberty Lane is private. Crest Place is a public road with no county maintenance. Dixie Road, that's Divide. Divide we do. There we go. There's Heights Loop, Heights Place, Divide. I'm kind of confused by the map here. It comes up, goes down. Divide is not, that's a public road with no county maintenance. Summit, I'm not sure about Summit, if that's a public or private road. But we do.
Summit, I think is too steep. That goes up towards the east there. If I remember right, that's a really steep.
Summit?
Yeah.
Okay, Crest is a steep little road. They're public roads with no county maintenance.
so we will need to ask planning and zoning if there is something in any kind of a record that when this was turned over, if there was any guarantee of maintenance. I mean, we have tons of these roads.
Yes,
All of them in the county are public with no county maintenance.
right.
I can't find anything that says that we'll maintain it. The original developer deeded it to the county.
Okay. So I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't know where the conversation even goes, because if there's not something that we specifically stated, we will take over maintenance. There is, I don't know how many miles of these types of roads throughout the county, but this sets precedents for everyone. And we absolutely do not have the financial resources to maintain what we currently have, much less take on anything else. So, I mean, unless our funding sources change drastically, and I don't know how that happens, and I don't know how we would even do this, there absolutely is not money to do this. This would bankrupt the county if we start taking on all these roads.
Well, I think the thing too, to keep in the back of your mind is if this was deeded to the public as a public right of way, and we have this many permanent residents in there, they've been able to plow the road and maintain the road and get along just fine. So to me, it still works. You can still access your property whether the county's plowing it or not. So to me, this sets a precedence for the other roads that we don't plow, we don't maintain. We're not doing it here, but we want to take on more there.
And I think from our point of view as the HOA board, we felt we had an obligation once we found out we don't own the road, because we have it posted as private, that only residents can allow to enter and all this other stuff, which obviously is technically not true and legal. So we felt we had a legal obligation on behalf of the homeowners that are in there, that are paying homeowners dues and paying for the snow removal. We spend about $12,000 a year on the road, at average. And so we felt we had an obligation to ask the question and find out what the answers are before we tell them, because especially the permanent residents tend to be hesitant to want to pay the HOA dues. It's not the cabin owners, the part-timers that give us the most flack, it's the permanent residents. So, and then I think personally, and as the board, the other question we have is, can we maintain our signage? If you all refuse to maintain the road, can we keep our signage and keep some private access to it? Because it is a loop. There's nowhere to go except around the neighborhood.
So would it be, I know we're not getting mileage out of this road on my blue lines. Would it be better to make it back into a private road?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because we fight a lot of people in little subdivisions throughout the county. It's like it doesn't go anywhere. It just goes back and makes a loop. Well, they start putting up private road signs. The homeowners start putting up speed limit signs, no parking
You
signs.
got all of that.
And we go in and take them down because they're illegal. But if it was a private subdivision again, I don't know how all that works, but Cinder's back there holding her head. So
We don't want to lose our public rights of way. There's people that are not in their subdivision that access.
Cindy, you're gonna have to come to the mic to talk.
There's not an access, there's an access point, but you have to go across a fence to get there.
Well, the heartburn comes in because they go south, go a little bit to the left and up. That lot, go down a little more. That lot, that corner lot, wanted access from this road. And he was told when he bought his land that this was a public road. But they said that he needs to come through a flagpole that goes down to Skidoo.
Here?
Yeah, zoom in.
Yeah, there's an access easement through there.
Yeah, they want him to come in off that and not off Gammon.
And when we made that decision and advised that homeowner of that, it was because we were under all of us thought that was a private road. And so we didn't want to set a precedence of allowing other people access to the neighborhood. Because once you let one person do it, then you have it. I think now that we know where we are, of course, we can't deny him access to the road from there. The other place there's a concern is down at the other end of the subdivision where there's an easement that goes to nothing and has a fence across it.
The other end of your subdivision here?
Yes. Way down there somewhere, there's just a little sliver of land that's an easement.
See,
Send right here
right, and then
for future land development in this area?
right,
Or
for connectivity, I mean, I don't know that if it's ever going to be developed, but that's why we required public roads in some things, or why we do now. I wasn't there at this time. For future connectivity throughout all of Valley County, not just within the subdivision. We've done it in a number of subdivisions we've done recently, is require those rights of ways so that people can get through without having to go back out on Highway 55. It's just a connectivity thing. There's also a connection up to Divide, which isn't, I haven't investigated that one thoroughly.
There's a place that's home on Divide. It's accessible from both sides.
Right. And I don't know I don't think there's a platted right of way through there. I can't recall. I know that I had investigated that one before. So there's connectivity issues. And you just need to think of your future and whether or not you're going to make all of these private and stop.
I don't think that's a decision for today, most certainly,
Right.
not in my opinion anyway, but in the subdivision ordinance, we do have connectivity, and that's something that, I mean, I'm looking at all plats that are coming through for future connectivity, because you're right, as we grow, we need to be able to have appropriate transportation between subdivisions. So, personally, I would not want to put this back to private either, just because it's pretty dense in there. What is this property? Who knows what that property is next? But I don't see connectivity off this one.
The gentleman on the phone.
Yeah, okay. I don't see connectivity into your subdivision from here, but,
He owns that 75 acres.
okay. But we also cannot take over all of these public roads for maintenance, for year-round maintenance, so. We
I think
actually,
honestly, the goal eventually was keeping this a public right of way, but it was always up to the individual developers to build and maintain and allow folks to live there. And then eventually someday when we did get enough funding, that's when the idea kicked in that, okay, if you build it up to county specs and you pave this road, then we would consider maybe taking that over. If we have the funds to do it, and we're not there yet. So we've either got to start thinking about giving these roads back as private roads, or we got to start thinking about finding more funds for our road department.
this wasn't brought up to a paved road. It's still only gravel, so I mean, it's not up to a county standard that we would accept for maintenance anyway. It's not paved. And honestly, this is what our road department advisory group, we just have a brand new road advisory group. We are looking at those standards, you know, what does bring it up to, you know, county standards mean? And there's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of clarification to be done so that people are. When you look at roads, you know exactly if the county's gonna take them for maintenance, if they're not gonna take them for maintenance. So we're in the midst of developing some of that.
What do you want to do? Table it?
Well, for now, I would say deny this one until, I mean, this is not, in my opinion, is not even close to a county standard where it's paved in a subdivision where the developer has actually built the road according to county standard, and we've approved that and accepted it for even a conversation for maintenance.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Well, if you look at Herrick Lane, we went in there and put in a lot of hard basalt rock for base and filter fabric and really built that road up to our specifications. I can bet that this road is not built to county specs.
It does have all of that fabric you're talking about, all that's done. We had a major at the Y, and David would be much better to speak about this on the phone. But at the Y, when you come in, we redid that, $14,000 improvement to that year before last. Idaho Power came in this year and did some work and tore it all up. Thank you. So we're in the process of trying to argue with Idaho Power about getting it back to where it was. I mean, it's not horrible, but they did tear it up, the work that we just had done. And that was all fabric replacement and everything packed and done back in the standards. So, but David knows, he can speak to that way more than I can.
So if they destroyed the road in there where that's a public road, I can help.
They didn't destroy it, they tore up a lot, you know, they were, I don't know what they were
Yeah,
doing.
there's
They went
the-
across the road.
They're supposed to get a permit through me, so I know where they're working. And I can't remember one being there, but
So
Chime in, David, anytime.
Carla, he probably can't hear you, so the
David,
microphone
anything in
system.
this conversation?
Well, I would like to, I'm sorry, I'm missing a lot of the discussion here, but I would like to just weigh in on a couple of things. I noted that, I believe it was you that pointed out that Herrick Lane was recently brought up to county standards. And you also need to note that you've been maintaining that for years and years, obviously, and it was not up to county standards, and yet you brought it up to county standards. So there seems to be a bit of an inconsistency in your policy that you have roads that are not county standard, you are maintaining them, you do improve them. And our feeling is that your policy is inconsistent in that yes, we are not at standard, and yet you have roads that you have maintained for years that also do not meet the standard. And so I guess we feel like similarly situated, we should be similarly treated. And I understand the dilemma that the county has. You've got a lot of roads, and I totally appreciate that, but I also feel like you need to sort out, I mean, one of the commissioners, somebody mentioned that maybe we need to get roads back to subdivisions to private. You know, maybe that's what you have to do to treat everybody alike, but our neighbors at Snow Haven, that's a gravel road, certainly not paved, and whether or not it's all to your standard, I don't know, I doubt it, but But anyhow, I think that there's a seems like a very inconsistent policy that needs to be addressed here. We're simply asking to be treated like other areas that are getting maintenance. We have permanent residents. We have people that have, we have a planning and zoning commissioner that lives just next door to me up here. And we have teachers in the school district that have responsible jobs in the community, and they need to get back and forth. Yes, it has worked. We have assessed our homeowners in the past, but that's because they thought they had a responsibility. Now many of them are very unhappy and not at all willing to pay this dues to maintain county subdivisions. So we're in a bit of a dilemma. We have fully expect that we're going to lose funding from many of our homeowners being unwilling to maintain the county road. And so we are now put into a bit of a conundrum ourselves because of now finding out that it is no longer a private road. So that's it is a difficult situation, but for both of us.
David, I'm trying to figure out in my head, if you guys spend about $12,000 a year to plow the snow, that doesn't count winter maintenance. That comes out to about $240 a lot. Do you think your folks in there would be willing to pay that much in property taxes if it was assessed? If the levy was passed and all that, would you be willing to pay that much?
Well, we're already paying that much, but if there was a levy, a road maintenance levy that was assessed on all gravel roads in the valley that, were outside the city limits or whatever criteria that you came up with, I think we would be willing to do that. But if we were singled out as just kind of randomly picked out, no, I don't think we would be happy about that. But
Okay, so let me ask you a follow-up question. If that road that you're on or any of the other roads like Divide Road or Heights New Breeders, if they're not built to county specs, do you think the county should take that cost on and build those roads so they'll hold up in the wintertime, or do you think that's something that the developer should do?
I think the county has a responsibility to make that assessment at the time they accept it. You should not be accepting roads that you're not willing to maintain. So I do think you should have some kind of a standard in order for you to accept them. In fact, I would think that you would have one of the commissioners mentioned they need to be built out. I would say that there'd be, first of all, you have to meet certain standards, design standards, and then there'd be an interim period that you have to have at least 20% build out before we're going to maintain a road to empty lots. So I know the utilities have policies like that too. You have to have at least a certain number of customers in there to justify the utility taking on that maintenance. It seems like that'd be appropriate for the county as well. But I think we have met that standard. We are built out now. We have people in here. So.
Losing? You still there?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. That was it. The short answer is yes. I think a standard is reasonable. I think it's essential. And I think it needs to be, but it needs to be administered even-handedly.
Okay,
And I would agree with that. I think this is a larger conversation that needs a lot more work on it. And before we make decisions to accept things that right now we don't have the capacity to accept. David, I hear your concerns and I hear your input. I do think that we can take that to, again, a larger conversation. But making a decision to accept this right now is just not in our financial capability of doing that. So I think we do need some more clarity. We are working on some clarification issues, I think.
Cindy, how would it work if we gave them the option to turn it back to a private road?
You'd have to deed it back to them. But
Which
if
is
you
not
do
hard.
that, I wouldn't deed back the access point for that one lot.
Subdivision ordinance states that we need on these connection to an adjacent lot or land. I mean, if this becomes a private road and the only access point to this land is back over here at 55.
I think that's
Then-
all accessible on Parrot right now.
This ground is being developed?
Yes.
Is there
Certainly
something
is.
there, Cinda, that you?
I don't have
aware
a
of?
subdivision plat.
Well, there's power boxes and roads and things going on over there.
They can't get there from Herrick. There's tons of, not unless this is all single ownership.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, so we've got to come in off 55.
I think a lot of it, what she might be talking about is off the end of Liberty. Is off the Liberty what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's,
It could, is that one of the streets all over?
yeah, that's a subdivision plat.
And that might be the access, but there are, it's definitely being developed right now. And
Yeah.
the access to it
This?
is off of, you leave Herrick to get to it.
But when we did Whispering Pines subdivision out Gold Dust, we made them put a public road through it, a public right of way. Because there's a lot of private property beyond that.
And they're maintaining their own?
Did you take it over yet?
We maintain the main Warner Road out to kind of
To a spot.
to where the road, yeah, to a spot, an intersection out there, but all the side roads are private.
I can't imagine actually anybody wanting to use our road to get to that land there because that access point is at the bottom of a very steep hill.
Got it.
I mean, it would be more treacherous than anything else, any other way to get to it. It would be the most treacherous way to get there.
Okay. So can we
literally-
table this one for now then and not make an up or down without more conversation?
Yeah, you can make it a motion, it's an action item.
Could I ask that as a minimum, we be allowed to keep our signage up until a decision is made? We have some kind of waiver of that?
So the only thing you can't do is exclude the gentleman. for this Because he's already been issued this permit, is that correct?
I
Cinda?
don't know if I've given that, no, the approach permits I did were out farther on in the loop.
I think you were the one that gave
No,
it
but you
to.
purchased this land thinking this was a
Right.
public road. And that you would be able to access
It currently
that.
is a public road.
It's
Right.
currently a public road.
And I think everybody, we, as a board, we have resigned ourselves to the fact that he has access from Gammon as long as he puts the proper culverts in and doesn't tear anything up, keeps the
Sure.
standards that we have right now. We're okay with that. We've accepted that, but, and like I said, while this is in decision process, as a minimum, I would love to see us be able to keep our signage up and not turn it into a four-wheeler or Mecca. That's all we care
So-
about.
I move then that we table the discussion on the long-term maintenance of Gammon Drive and Emma Loop until further research and discussion is held on how we will be maintaining these public right-of-ways with no county maintenance, while allowing the one gentleman that's already been approved for access onto Gammon Drive and allowing the subdivision to maintain their private drive signage until such a time that a decision is made.
That's okay. I have a question for Jeff, just because I'm not really sure. Just because someone deeds a road or public access, it doesn't necessarily mean all the responsibility falls back on the county, does it?
No, all these three that are on the agenda for today, they all basically say that same verbiage that you guys just read, deeded to the public. It doesn't say nothing about maintenance. It just says deeded to the public as a public road.
And just so you all understand from an HOA point of view, we live in Boise, most of us live in Boise where, it's a different atmosphere than here. So we're always concerned with litigation and liability issues. So we have a current contract, written, signed contract with a person, a businessman here to do snow removal. Is it legal? We don't own the road. Is it legal? What happens if
So
something happens on the
It
road?
takes a permit.
See,
So we have to have a memorandum of understanding with you to be able to maintain a county road. Yes.
and we knew nothing about this for 30 years.
Okay, we
I
got a
think we're in the
motion.
same boat in a lot of areas right
Yeah.
now. We're playing catch up, trying to figure those areas out.
So
Let's go
that's,
ahead and vote on the motion, and then let's come back and talk about this permit that you should have with Jeff in order to hire anybody to plow that road. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Now, you can talk with Jeff about a MOU that authorizes you guys to hire someone to plow that road.
and summer maintenance is.
And it's late in the summertime.
Okay?
Okay. You can get hold of me on my email or something, and
The only other thing I can say, you
they
guys,
don't
is if
with
we ever
me.
get to a point.
If
where
you
we have
wanted to
an
stop by the
election
office on the way out of,
For a road levy, you guys, we need your support. We've already tried twice, and
yep.
it's failed twice, so that's the thing you gotta keep in the back of your mind.
Commissioner, may I make one more comment?
Sure.
David Shunky. Right now, we do have a person maintaining our road. But we struggled, we went for 4 or 5 months, trying to find somebody, willing and able, to maintain our road. So there's no guarantee that in the future, we'll be even able to find somebody that has the, interest in maintaining our road. So paying for it is one thing, but when there was a suggestion that maybe we pay the county to do that, that would be an attractive option. If we found ourselves in the dilemma where we couldn't find anybody, it would not be our first choice, but it would at least be nice to have the backup that we could hire the county to do it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's gonna work for us because there's a lot of state code that doesn't allow the county to do that kind of thing because basically what it comes down to is we're competing with private industry. So there's a lot of.
No, I'm assuming that,
Go ahead.
I was assuming that it's still your road.
So I think the conversation is that would we be able to include these if a levy is passed? And I don't think we can guarantee that either. I mean, if we pass a levy, we're gonna have to figure out where we're gonna be maintaining and how that happens. So we can't guarantee that anything's gonna be specifically in that levy either.
No, absolutely not,
Yeah.
absolutely not, and it depends on the size of the levy.
I
But I
think
would say,
he's asking us though, as like a backup plan, can they pay us?
can they contract
And
with the
that's
county to
not
plow that
possible,
road?
right?
Carol had told us that that wasn't possible.
Right.
We can't be paid for public services.
Gotta go through the levy process.
Okay, the next one up is, let me look here.
let's go ahead and do Boulder Creek Meadow subdivision since Russell's waiting on the phone.
Okay.
You still there, Russell?
Yeah, I'm here.
So
Okay.
Meadow Creek
Yep.
subdivision? What road?
I was just looking on my plat map, they still call that Lucy Circle. It's actually Meadows Drive,
Meadow Place.
Meadows Place.
Meadow Place, yeah. 161 Meadow Place.
This is in not really part of Wagon Wheel subdivision, but same area.
Meadow Place? What's the
Meadows.
last name? What's the last name? Meadow Place.
Yeah, click
And
on
which
that
number?
one.
One more time.
Which number?
161.
161.
Yep, it's right off the cul-de-sac. Yep, right there. Okay, so we maintain everything in there year-round, except for that little cul-de-sac.
Except for this.
Yep,
So we do Upland Road, we do this.
yep, that's Meadow Place. Up Heath is the next one, and Grassy Place. Yeah, so it's all part of that one little subdivision in there. And there's just never been anybody living there. But once again, are we picking? It's not paved, it's gravel. The whole subdivision was accepted as public right-of-ways. And in the past 10, 15 years, however long it's been before I became where I am, they started plowing and maintaining all those roads.
So here is maintained?
Yep. Every road in there is maintained except for that right there.
And is there appropriate turnaround right here?
Big cul-de-sac.
So how much time is that gonna add to the route?
The road grader, probably 10 minutes, maybe. Go in, punch it out. I believe Russell's concern, as long as, same with this Zune one, is there's a fire hydrant right at the end of that cul-de-sac.
Right back here.
But yeah, yep, right in there. So maybe 10 minutes as we plow that with the road grader. Pretty quick. But once again, are we stepping on other people's toes to accept this road and not accept another one?
So what is our policy? If we have, I mean, that's a health and safety issue. So what is our policy? How would the fire truck get to that?
The same way it's getting there now. It's privately plowed.
So it is being plowed. It's just at the end.
I believe it's being plowed, Russell. Am I correct?
No, yeah, our cul-de-sac, that stretch is unplowed, to the fire hydrant. From the turn to the end of the cul-de-sac is unplowed currently.
So you have somebody plowing up that little road a little ways to your driveway?
That's me, yeah, with a
Oh.
snow blower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when they come around the corner, every morning I gotta go out and dump about 4 feet of ice just to get in and out of my property, plowing that, other side of the meadow.
Yeah, so right now we're treating that little stub of Meadow Place as a driveway. We're just, the road grader's going down to the end of Meadows, turning around, coming out and then turning up Upland and just leaving a berm across. It's like any other driveway anywhere
Is
we've
that
got.
the only permanent house in there, that green one?
Yes. Well, there's one right across from you, Russell. Is anybody living in that yet?
Yeah.
Next,
Who's plowing him?
Nobody, yeah, unplowed. He's like 90% done construction. And then the one next to us is gonna be built this spring. It's a friend of ours who owns that one.
east or west of you?
It is to the west of us, so it'd be right on the corner.
Oh, okay.
This one?
Yep.
So it's already being plowed.
That road's already being plowed and that other person that's building is in that middle lot across the way from him, right there.
So again, I go back to, we're putting infrastructure in for fire safety, but we can't get to it.
That's my district.
Yeah, do you have any input on that?
I've talked to the individual on the phone a couple times, and I've talked to Mr. McFadden here about it, and he said that this was the process we would take for that particular section. My opinion is we plow it, so I can get to that hydrant, because we made them put the hydrant in the first place.
Yeah, we made them put, that's what I don't understand is why, for health and safety purposes, we can't get to every hydrant that we've made somebody put in.
Right. And there's hydrants at the end of every cul-de-sac in there, I believe. Yeah.
What do you wanna do?
To me, it seems like this is something that we add into our plow route. I mean, we're talking 10 minutes.
And for the health and safety, you know, I mean, I think that's the difference on everything. If there's something that provides health and safety to that subdivision, we have to allow access to that.
So we need a motion.
I will make a motion that we add Meadows Place, I guess you could call it, east to the plow routes on Meadows Place.
Before I second, can I ask a question of Ogie? So as far as legal counsel, do we have any issues here, accepting some and not others, since we do have a health and safety issue on this one?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Commissioner, the policy that the county has been following historically, which I've been
doing some research on, but still, I think this is an open-ended issue, but it's also been litigated. But the county has broad discretion on how to make these decisions and make determinations as to how maintenance, including winter maintenance, is going to happen. So you have the ability through your discretionary powers to make decisions. Aside from that, you need to be cognizant of and avoid being arbitrary in your decision making. And one of the ways that can help guide that is by developing a policy. I know that's something that we've talked about, and it's something that we need to work on. But in the meantime, use your best judgment. Try to be consistent in the way that you make decisions, and just rely on your discretionary powers that have been confirmed by the court through our through the legal system, or the court case that we just recently went through, and I think you should be fine.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
So I will second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the last one, Zoom.
Okay, Zune is Simcoe Estates. Just click on any of those addresses there. Okay, yep, so the one with the blue square is the one we're talking about. That is Richard Avila's property, or Avila. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. He just got his C of O, certificate of occupancy, month and a half ago, something like that. That is about 1,700 feet of road, which we plow that with the truck. It takes 4 trips with the truck to get a road to full width. And it's got a 120-foot cul-de-sac at the end with a fire hydrant at the end.
At the end here, Jeff, or here?
Go to the right, cul-de-sac's right there.
Right there.
Yep. There's a fire hydrant there. Looking at probably, I don't know. Ask him. Is there water in that hydrant?
I think it's a dry hydrant. Let me check real quick. That's what I was asking the farmer.
Oh, okay.
Why would you put a dry fire hydrant in? I don't get that one.
Because
What
there's
does
a
that
water
mean?
source that's available to that dry hydrant. Let me make sure.
Okay, so we're looking at 30 to 40 minutes probably for the truck. It's got one big intersection he's got to clean, and then he's got a sharp 90 at the bottom of the hill, about where the square dot is. Then it's flat out to the cul-de-sac.
Are we doing Leland Drive?
Yes, we do everything in there except for Zune. It's paved. It was brought up to county standards. We paved all that. I was part of the paving crew that did that. We did that with cold mix asphalt. Then whoever decided to pave Zoom actually brought in hot mix, which is a little better product. I don't see any issues with the road drainage or anything.
The county paved Zune?
No.
Oh.
No, we paved every other road in there. We chip sealed every other road in there.
The county?
The county did.
At county expense?
That was way back when we had the homeowners would pay for the oil. We would do the road build and bring it up to, and then we'd pave it.
I have your answer.
Huh?
It is a dry hydrant. The hydrant's hooked up to the reservoir. And we draft off of it.
But it could be used in the event of a fire.
That's the specific reason for it, yes.
What's your pleasure?
So it has been privately plowed by a resident that lives in that area.
And so this is gonna add half an hour to, how long is the schedule already in there?
Probably a half hour. My truck in that, on his route's probably right at 8 hours. So it'll probably bump him up a half hour. And that is a secondary road, which I've already explained to Commissioner Hasbrook that we're already in there plowing every other road. We're not gonna come back the next day and get Zune. While we're in there, we're gonna plow it if that's your choice.
And the only, I think the difference on this one is it was brought up to county standards. You know, I mean, we've accepted every other road in there for county maintenance, and it doesn't make sense not to do the last lane if the entire subdivision has been accepted and it was brought up to county standards including pavement.
The only time that ever really hurt us was when we had a part-time resident that wasn't here in the wintertime. We decided that was up to the snowplow operator to say, there is somebody here or not here. Why are we plowing this road? And that was kind of just call.
And is this the new homeowner, Mr. Avila, is he here full-time?
Yes, he has a homeowner exemption on the house. That is something else we look for. We'll click on his lot, pull up the assessor's map. If it shows a Arizona address or Boise or wherever, and his homeowner's exemption says no, that usually kind of throws up a red flag for us.
So I'll make a motion then that we authorize Jeff to plow Zoom Lane.
I'll second that.
Who did say, any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay. Meadows Place and Zune Lane.
Anything else, Jeff, you need to talk to us about?
Just struggling through winter.
It's been a good winter.
Are you down any other drivers or are you?
No, we're still full. Thank you, Pat.
Perfect. Good news.
Okay, yeah, nothing else major. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on down our agenda item. The next item, we have an executive session. Do you want to wait, Doug, and do that after? Since Ron's here?
Mr. Chairman, I would propose that the commissioners do wait for that matter until all the other business is
Okay.
taken care of.
So then we'll start off with the next item, the meeting minutes of February 16th. Everybody go to those?
There's a couple little tiny things, but I didn't get it until this morning, or didn't read it until this morning, so I'm fine with it.
Need a motion to approve.
Second.
Move to second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is also an action item. It's a request from Valley County Search and Rescue to utilize Title III funds to purchase equipment.
Mr. Chairman, that's actually been postponed until next week.
Postponed, okay. I think we kind of need to set some parameters on that, but let's see what comes up next week. Next item is also an action item. It's a professional service agreement with Juan Bonilla, our emergency services manager. Anything you want to add or talk about, Juan, or are you good with what we got?
Sir, I agree with the contract that we have already listed. I had time to review it last week. There is just the increase, remember, in the 2020 EMPG from the last year, but we were already took care of that during the budget cycle.
Where are we at on the county's hazard plan?
That's
submitted
and it's done.
Not the FEMA one, not the big one, the local one, the updates to our local,
The emergency operating plan,
that one.
we
Sorry.
haven't started those sessions yet, man. So we're moving forward. Everybody I've talked to so far, some of the key players in the steering committee asked that we do that towards the end of March, beginning of April.
Okay.
When we start that first steering committee session.
It'll be this year though.
Yes.
So this is an increase from, I think, $24,000 to $30,525 a year for this contract, just so everyone knows. And Juan is paid a monthly installment of $25,43.66. This time I would entertain a motion to approve this contract.
Got my, if I can clarify the wages too. Remember that we only pay 50% of that. We get reimbursed 50% at the end of the year.
From Homeland Security.
That's Homeland Security Grant, EMPG.
So Juan, is it an automatic increase? I'm trying to find the information. I apologize.
The increase is an algorithm set by FEMA itself, and it's based on populace.
I move that we approve the 2021 contract with Juan Bonilla, our emergency manager.
And then second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Yes, sir.
Get your signature, Chief, that'd be great.
And then I need a copy of it.
That would be great. How about if I email it to you?
That'd be
That's the mail that came.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know why.
What is my signature on that?
A good one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Juan. We're gonna move on down the agenda. The next item is an action item, discussion decision regarding membership to Southwest Idaho Resource Conservation and Development Council and the selection of a commissioner as representative.
So I did research this. It's a funding mechanism, so Dorena asked that we go ahead and join this. We do have one project that they're helping to fund out on Horsty. So there is good representation. So, yeah, I agree that we need to be a part of it because there is some funding available to Valley County that we can participate in. Mary Rosen has been actually joining some of these meetings. So I'm wondering if you guys think that maybe she would be a good recommendation to actually be a member or a backup. I mean, we can put a
That's an awesome
commissioner.
idea.
It's grants. So, I mean, if I'm appointed, then I'm gonna go right to Mary and say, this is the grants that are available. And she could be a part of that conversation. So
You know, does it have to be a county commissioner or just their appointment?
I don't know the answer to that one.
We'll find out.
Unless somebody wants to be, you know,
Would you have any concerns about that as far as us asking her to do that?
No, she is an hourly employee, so she'll just have to keep track of her hours, but no. I think it's a great idea.
Need a motion?
I move that we approve our membership to the Southwest Idaho Resource Conservation and Development Council and ask if Mary Rosen would be a willing volunteer to be our representative. I'm happy to be the alternate or to help Mary. I'll put that in my motion.
That's awesome. Thanks for looking into it.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and just to clarify, and to pay the requested contribution membership due for 2021.
What's the membership?
$500.
$500, yes, sir.
As amended.
That work for you, Dave?
It definitely does. Thank you.
Okay, move to second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item. We got enough time to do it. It's an action item. This is a discussion decision related to a request for the vacation of the right of way from the city of Cascade. Real brief, I'll give you what I have done and then we can kind of go from there. I got the application here, I've got contact list, all the stuff we need to do. I filled out some of it. Couple of questions. Do we need to, approach Idaho Power about doing away with their easement, or can we leave those power lines there?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question.
This is a very big line. You can see from here, that would take,
I would think it would just like be having them have power on private property as long as they can access it, right?
Well, if we were gonna build a big giant 3-story building, then that was what happened,
That would
that's
be a
when the
problem.
issue would come.
I think it would just be changing their easement from the city of Cascade to their easement to us. And if we should, in the future, choose to build along that, we would work with them to design what their power source would, how that would change with their power sources.
The other issue that I did is I contacted Steve Bate in the lot down here at the south end. He is not interested in selling it. He wants to keep that for, seems like a long time. And he has to have access off the alley to enter that big shed that's kind of on the north side of it. He has a back window that he uses to plow. And I did not know it, but they also own the FAA building down by Harpo's, and they use that backhoe to go down and plow that building out for the FAA. So he's not interested in giving that part of the alley away. So I'm assuming we would just go to the south edge of the courthouse and that would be it.
Or we could state that we would issue an easement to him over our property. Because right now it's a public easement, public road right of way. We could just do it and state that we would provide an easement to anybody along that.
Would the city then be willing to vacate it?
If there was a guarantee that nobody would lose access, then I think that would, strengthen the conversation about that.
Do we need it clear to the street?
No, I would just think it'd make it a little bit more clean on the city side of things. I mean, if that entire easement is gone and in county record, it just shows that he has access to that building. To me, that would be cleaner, but that would be up to the city.
Cindy, do you have anything you want to add?
If you vacate that, then it's split ownership and you don't get all of the ownership. It goes to the adjacent property owner, not Valley County. As far as the part that's adjacent to Bates. So the county would get the west-ish 10 feet and Steve would get the other 10 feet.
So it'd actually be deeded to him?
That's what vacation would be, is a deed. That's how you vacate it. The property up here would be deeded to Valley County, but I think that there might be some water lines and stuff going through here also, because I know that there's a meter base just north, just that way of the. So you want to check those other utilities, because it's not just Idaho Power, it's Zipley, it's city utilities and things like that.
Well, that's what I needed to know is what exactly are we gonna do with the alleyway if we do get it? Are we just putting better gates across it, or are we gonna build a structure on it? Because I think all those other utilities just can stay where they are. I think we have heat pump stuff under there too, don't we? Out there that for part of our heating system as well.
And fiber optics.
And fiber optics.
I think for now, it's mostly just the secure parking, so the fences would be the primary use, and if, at some point we decided we wanted a breezeway or something like that, that would be a separate conversation as far as what we do with those utilities in there.
That's correct. The reason we're asking for it from the reason security committee was asking for it was just so that we could prevent somebody from driving through and parking a vehicle with a bomb. So there are two reasons. One of them is we need to keep the gates closed for the inmates when they're going from the jail to the courthouse, make it more secure. If they were more secure fencing, then it would be harder for somebody to take them. But the other reason is that if we close off the end over here for secure parking, then again, it's just for the parking is all we were doing it. We, as far as another building or something, that would be up to the capital plan, improvement plan.
So the security committee then I guess is thinking about eventually we'll have a security gate out there that you'll have to go through.
Yes, that is true. And primarily it's to protect people like the judge, the prosecuting attorney, anybody, Captain Stambaugh said anybody that hires and fires people could park back there, so that would be like the elected officials and directors. But really it is dispatch, as long as they're here, they park there, and because they're odd hours, it'd be a little safer for them. So that was the whole reason behind it.
So are you guys talking about a man gate or just something where you slip the card in and it opens up automatically?
We don't know yet. There's all kinds of ideas that have gone back and forth and sideways and up and down, and we haven't got that far. We do know that we want, when it gets time and we're ready to really get into that. I mean, this is the first step. Yeah, and then we'll have to get it in the budget and go through that whole process, so.
Okay, so then I guess the motion we're looking for is for me to proceed onwards with the vacation of that alleyway to the very south edge of the courthouse. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds accurate to me.
Steve owns 2 properties there. We know
Yeah,
that.
there's 2 parcels in that one parcel, I think. Isn't there like where the,
There's a long skinny one and then his parking lot.
Yeah.
So there must be, so he would get full access, really clear to the back side of the courthouse.
very back edge of the courthouse?
So this is my question, is this worth doing because his property comes and abuts us, pretty far up. I don't know where that walk door is. You guys have done enough research to make sure that what you want to accomplish can be accomplished with as much as he owns, if he gets the other half of that easement.
But it would just be where the current gates are right now, and the current gates right now are actually on our property. They're right along the edge there where the courthouse ends and his property begins. It's right there.
Okay.
And I would imagine probably what will happen long term is if the city keeps that part of that alleyway, then use it for snow storage. Especially if we have a gate or a fence across the south end, then they'll just start piling snow.
But then he can't get into his property if that happens.
Isn't how they want to handle it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll second the motion to allow you to move forward and complete the research. I'm just wondering if we're accomplishing what we want.
Well, I think it makes sense in the long run, as far as, getting a gated facility here that only certain people can park in.
And that's the plan.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion done, carries. So I will proceed with that and see where it goes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, one more thing and then we'll recess for lunch. I would like to go into executive session per Idaho Code 2061D for indigent and charity.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Bob and I.
Ezra Guy, so Doug Moran at 12:06. Jody, come back.
I think she's getting her paperwork. Jody, are you coming this way or this way?